to hear from our community. So our community is a critical component and part of this collaborative process, and I thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us this evening. On September 10th, County Executive Bellone announced the members of the Suffolk County Police Reform and Reinvention Task Force and the initial community process in compliance with Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 203, New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. Working with the County Executive's Office, the newly created task force will solicit input from individuals and organizations across the county, as we are doing today and as they continue to do with the organizations that they represent. And all of this, all of the work that we're engaged in helps to contribute to the development of a plan as it pertains to police reform and reinvention within Suffolk County that will first be presented to the Suffolk County Legislature for approval and then to New York State by April 1st, 2021, according to Governor Cuomo's executive order. Our county executive has been extremely involved in this process. We continue to update him, ensure that he has access to all of the task force meetings, all of the information that is being shared in task force meetings, all of the public listening sessions. We have continual meetings on a weekly basis as we are engaged in police reform and reinvention within Suffolk County. Our task force has 36 members representing government officials, law enforcement, police union, faith leaders, and community leaders. And not only do our task force members serve on the task force, but they bring with them hundreds of voices of the constituents that they serve to the table as we engage in this work of police reform and reinvention. The framework of the task force discussions have been centered around what functions should the police reform, determining the role of the police, staffing, budgeting, and equipping your police department, employing smart and effective policing strategies and standards, procedural justice and community policing, law enforcement strategies to reduce racial disparities and build trust, community engagement, fostering community-oriented leadership, culture, and accountability, looking at leadership and culture, tracking and reviewing the use of force and identifying misconduct, internal accountability for misconduct, citizen oversight and other external accountabilities, data, technology, and transparency, recruiting and supporting excellent personnel, recruiting a diverse workforce, training and continuing education, and supporting officer wellness and well-being. Our task force activities to date have included our introductory meeting on 9/21, which was an introductory meeting with our task force members to talk about the creation and the format of their task force meetings and public input and comment. October 9th, presentations to the task force in reference and discussion and reference to recruitment, applicant investigations, promotions, internal affairs, part 1, officer accountability. Task force meeting 3, October 21st, part 2 of internal affairs, disciplinary policy and procedures, command discipline procedures, departmental charges and procedures and disciplinary options. Task force meeting 4, October 27th, internal affairs part 3, referrals to the IAB response team, external review of the Suffolk County Internal Affairs Bureau, access to disciplinary records, and availability of IA reports. November 6th, traffic stop data. We talked about SCPD shared the database for the use of collection that is used for collecting information as it pertains to traffic stops. Continual improvement on data collection methods, focus groups within the Division of Patrol. In development, creation of a real-time dashboard for supervisors to review traffic data on a continual basis. Precinct to precinct comparisons, breakdown by command and precinct, and real-time data by race, gender, stops, searches, and disposition. Early warning system for command staff to review regarding officers who are outliers. Outreach and dialogue with national experts in the field of collecting, analyzing, and responding to traffic stop data. The national expert that we happened to have on that call with us was Frank Baumgartner. His work focuses on public policy, agenda setting, interest groups, comparative politics, the death penalty, racial profiling and traffic stops, and much of his current agenda has to do with studies of race with particular focus on the death penalty and on traffic stops. Our task force meeting on November 12th was in reference to de-escalation, use of force, and firearms training. We reviewed training hours for Police Academy and continuing education. We reviewed de-escalation training and policies and procedures, communication skills, and use of force and firearms. Our task force meeting 7, arrests and warrants. We discussed total warrants over the last 3 years, arrest by custody status, community-based outreach and violence interruption, and diversion programs and search warrants. Our next task force meeting is this Friday, and we are just going to be discussing mental health response. And then after this task force meeting on Friday, we have our task force breaking up into subcommittees, and we will engage on and further the discussions, suggestions that we've had in reference to police reform and reinvention based on the particular subcommittees that have risen to the level of more in-depth and deeper dive. We've also created a task force. Our task force website was created in the mid-October, and that has information, all the information that you may need as to what our task force meetings have been about, the presentation so that the public is aware of what those task force meetings have been. It also has all of the links to our public listening sessions. So if you want to hear any of our public listening sessions, you have every right to, and they are posted there. It also has a listing of all of our task force members, along with various data, statistics, and resources that are appropriate for the work that we're engaged in and appropriate for the public to review, so that when you're coming to these public listening sessions, you have information at your hand as you're speaking to particular areas of policing and policing reform. Some of the suggestions and recommendations, and these, of course, are not all in totality, but we've looked at streamlining the process for complaints regarding officers and treatment, additional oversight regarding internal affairs, benchmarking of similar-sized police departments and municipalities, mental health professionals responding to 911 calls, additional mental health training for officers, considering additional formats for public listening sessions. So we're engaging with stakeholder organizations and holding additional public listening sessions for those who may not feel comfortable in this format provided, to provide their stories, their suggestions, and their recommendations. Dialogue on the use of the polygraph as part of applicant investigations, ongoing implicit bias training for officers, diversity of police academy staff and field training officers, and a myriad of others. But really, as we engage in our work, it is extremely important for the public to be engaged with us. So that's why we partake in these listening sessions, because we want to hear from you, your recommendations, suggestions, stories, just your insight and input as we engage in this work. Our task force members are extremely committed. They are dedicated to this process. They have spent many numbers of hours in the work as we engage in police reform and reinvention. I will introduce our task force members to you momentarily, but at this point in time, I'd like to be able to share with you and present to you our police commissioner, Ms. Geraldine Hart.
Thank you, Vanessa, and good evening, everybody. I want to thank Vanessa and John for all their hard work throughout this process, and their entire staff. Christian does a great job kind of emceeing, so thank you for that. Thank you for our entire staff for all the work they do. I'm joined by our Deputy Police Commissioner, Risco Menchin-Lewis. And as Vanessa really outlined, we are hard at work doing this reform that is so critical to make our department even better. So it's great to hear from all of you. I know that you're taking time out of your evening to be with us, and that means quite a bit. It's critical that we interact and hear from our communities, and really those that have had experiences with our police department, and if they could share those stories. We look forward to those new voices this evening, and I want to thank all of you.
Thank you. Deputy Police Commissioner Risco Menchin-Lewis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Risco Menchin-Lewis, and I really look forward to another evening of listening and learning and getting new ideas, whether it's where you're on the call, whether you're in the chat, or whether you send us an email later. We just want you to know that we're listening, we're learning, we're doing research after the fact. One thing I would also like to say is, I have friends and family that are of the LGBTQ community. I have friends and family who are Latinx. I have friends and family, and myself was a Black woman, Black children, Black son, Black brothers, Black sisters, cousins. And the whole point I'm saying is this: I have strong feelings about some of the discussions because it affects my family, but that does not allow or say that I can be disrespectful to anybody on this call. And so what I'd like to say to all of you in the chat last few times, a few people have just decided to let go and just be disrespectful in chat. And I implore you that how you feel, your feelings are important, but they don't allow you to be disrespectful to people in this chat. So I just wanted to say that. And the third thing I want to say that is we are listening. We're listening, we're taking notes, we're doing research. I've researched the cahoots this week. We researched traffic stop data experts. I spent the entire last week and this week working on review, police civilian review boards across the country. So we're listening, so that's what you need to know. We're listening. So you can just talk to us and say what you have to say, but there's no reason to be disrespectful or call names because we're going to listen to you regardless. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Police Commissioner. At this time, I turn it over to my co-facilitator to introduce himself, John Kamen, Deputy County Executive John Kamen.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, this is John Kamen, also Deputy County Executive. I am losing my voice, but I do want to make a point to follow up on what Risco said. The county executive, Tim Sini, the district attorney, they've agreed and made a commitment to make sure that this task force is about, and these listening sessions, this whole process is about the task force, the membership, hearing, listening, and participating and giving their input. And so we're intentionally, the goal is for the elected officials not to be the focus of these listening sessions. The goal is to let people from the public participate, share their experiences, share their ideas, share their concerns, to have the task force members internalize it, hear it through this participatory process. We have a lot of staff on here as well. The police leadership also very much engaged. And so that's really what the process is. So those who are trying to turn this into a political kind of thing and really make it about them as opposed to what this is really about, which is about the community and what they have to say and what they've experienced. It's not about us asking questions even, it's about what they have to say. And so we can assure you, everybody, and speaking for the task force, that our officials, legislative officials as well, police officials, and the county executive and the district attorney are very much engaged, reading the reports on this, sharing the information that we gather, and would like to thank all of those participating, task force members and the public. And we hope that people do choose to participate in a meaningful way, as opposed to some of what inevitably happens, but that's the way it goes. So anyway, thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, John. Legislator Jason Richburg, task force member.
Good evening, folks. My name is Jason Richburg. He, him, his. I am legislator for the 15th Legislative District. That represents Wyandanch, Wheatley Heights, East Farmingdale, North Lindenhurst, parts of North and West Babylon, North Amityville, Copeg, and Amityville Village. I wanted to just thank you all for coming here today. We're here to listen, and we're here to learn. Each one of these task force hearings, I've learned something, I've heard something, but what's most important is we need you all to be ambassadors. As much as we all can reach out, we need you to bring your friends and family and those folks who would be interested to come down and speak as well, because we want to hear your experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, because I think that's important. And if folks don't want to do that, please reach out to the task force. You could reach out to my office as well. I am going to apologize that I will be stepping off for a second, but I will be listening in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. ADA Leslie Anderson. Unmute yourself, Leslie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Leslie Anderson. I'm a Deputy Bureau Chief on the executive staff in the District Attorney's Office. I'm on here with my colleague, Carrie Ann Soto. We've been in attendance at each one of these precinct outreach meetings. We've taken all of the pertinent information back to the DA and know that we are in constant meetings about this. Thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Thank you, Leslie. Rita Fernandez.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Aretha Fernandez. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and Aya. I serve as the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Suffolk County and also a member of the task force, and I'm here to listen. Thank you.
Jennifer Levesque. Jennifer?
Hi, can you hear me?
You sure can. Thank you, Jennifer.
I'm plugged in and I'm driving. I want you all to know that my name is Jennifer Levesque. My pronouns are she, her, hers, representing Next Generation Long Island Incorporated. We are a not-for-profit that cares to address issues that impact young people on Long Island, including the millennial and Gen Z generation. And so I'm happy to be representing that demographic as a part of the task force. And I'm also happy to be here to hear you guys tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Dan Russo? Dan, unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. My name is Dan Russo. I'm an attorney. I'm also the administrator for the Suffolk County Assigned Counsel Plan. In that role, my role is to provide private attorneys to indigent clients in both family court, district court, county court, and Supreme Court. And I'm a member of the task force, and I'm happy to be here and to listen tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger Clayman.
Good evening. I'm Roger Clayman. I'm the Executive Director of the Long Island Federation of Labor.
Thank you. Kathleen King.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen King. I am the chairperson for the Suffolk County Native American Advisory Board, representing the 4 indigenous tribes of Native Americans living here in Suffolk County, the Setalakot, Unkachuk, Montaukett, and the Shinnecock Nations.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
Linda Perdomo Ayala.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Perdomo Ayala. I am the chair of the Suffolk County Human Rights. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella. Me llamo Linda Perdomo Ayala y soy la directora de recursos derechos humanos y estoy aquí para escucharlo a todo. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina Vargas. Christina Vargas. We'll come back to her. Pilar Moya.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pilar Moya Mencera. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Help, and I'm here to listen to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Sana Nadim. Sister Sana. Sharon Weber.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Weber. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I'm also a member of Amistad, the Black Bar Association in Suffolk County, and I have represented many people of color and poor individuals, and I'm here to listen.
Thank you. I will go to, once again, I'll just go back to Sister Sana Nadim. Are you on? Task Force member Girish Patel. He indicated that he might be joining late. Okay. We also have, while they are not task force members, just important for us to note this evening that we do have Mayor Paul Pontieri on the line as well as Legislator Piccirillo. Legislator Piccirillo or Mayor Pontieri, would you like to say a few words?
Good evening. Just very quickly, as the mayor of a village, my interaction with the police is almost on a consistent basis, and particularly with the 5th Precinct, Inspector Silver, and the men he's in charge of, and women. And villages and downtowns put a tremendous amount of stress on the police force themselves. And whether it's the Alive After 5, it's the festivals, the parades, those things you love to do, or dealing with the situation we dealt with in the village about 10 years ago, the murder of Marcelo Lucero. When you take all of these things together and you see how well, the 5th Precinct is what I deal with, how well they handled it and how well the men they do. I'm just here to tell you that many of the stresses that they're under are ones that come at them immediately. Decisions have to be made immediately. And in all cases that I've dealt with them, they've done a wonderful job. So I'm pleased to support the Suffolk County Police Department, and in particular the 5th Precinct, and the support they give the Village of Patchogue. They're tremendous partners. Thank you.
Thank you. And Legislator Picarello.
Mayor, Legislator, thanks for having me, Vanessa, and thank you, Commissioner Hart, also for being here. Just want to thank everybody on the call. As the youngest member of the legislature, I think it's my duty to be on these calls, to hear the public, to hear my generation and the next generation about your ideas, what you want to see in the future. I was on the last call, and there were some things that, I was shaking my head yes about, but there were a lot of things that I just not ready to get behind yet. But I am here to listen to all of you. I think it's important that we keep this dialogue and these channels open to hear from everyone in every situation. And I look forward to tonight's call. Thank you, Ms. Badstreet. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. So we have made the introductions of our task force members and everyone else that is on the call. Once again, we're very thankful for everyone joining the call. And as echoed by my fellow task force members, we're all here because we want to see fair, just, and equitable policing within Suffolk County. So it's really important that as we engage in this process and we're asking and we want something to come of this process, we also must embody that spirit as well. So as we're talking about the chat, and sometimes there have been things that have not been very nice or respectful, we ask you to be respectful of each other, because that's what we're asking of this process. And I think that it's just extremely important. If we are asking for something, we need to embody that spirit of what we're asking for. So I would hope and underscore the words of our previous task force members. This is a productive process. This is a serious process we are engaged in. This is a serious matter. So please, I ask you to be respectful. I ask you to give insightful input. I ask you to provide recommendations and suggestions. I ask you to do all of that, but I ask you to do it in a respectful manner so that we can move this process forward and continue to engage in police reform and reinvention within Suffolk County. So once again, I thank you all. As we indicated, you have been given a speaker number. What I will say is I will say your speaker number and then the last name. If you don't respond, then I will say your last name. Our speakers are given 3 minutes. You are not able to defer your time to any other speaker. We have 60 speakers that are listed, and you will not be able to, regardless of if all 60 speak or not, you will not be able to defer your time to another speaker. We ask that you have 3 minutes for speaking. The clock will appear after when you have 1 minute left. And we ask you to please look at that clock and please stop. And I don't want to do this, but I will have to let you know that your comment period is, you have exceeded your comment period. You have an opportunity to communicate us through public.input@suffolkcountiny.gov, anything that you're not able to communicate on this call. So once again, thank you for coming out. Everyone have a great evening, and we're going to start with our speaker one. Speaker one, please unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Hi, I am Sam White, she, her, hers, and I am a Stony Brook University social welfare student. I'm here because of the culture of police department, specifically the Suffolk County Police Department. I love all of the ideas that come in about how we can diversify and we can get social workers into the department, but what can we do about the culture and ego and mistaking absolute deference for basic respect? I don't expect officers to know all the laws ever. However, when interacting with professionals who do get paid to know what they're talking about and about the population they serve, I do expect a certain level of respect, and there is none. I don't expect an officer to just believe anybody at any time. However, the story I'm going to tell is going to show just the sheer, I hate to use the word ego, but it is what it is. I worked with homeless youth and in a residential facility, and a supervisor who I do want to note is an older Black woman with an accent. So that maybe wasn't explicitly the reason this happened, but implicitly it definitely did not help. we had a situation where a parent tried to have a child removed. That's against the law. Once a child is in the care of a residential facility, they are not allowed to be removed by anyone, including the police. Instead of believing my supervisor, believing the posted text in the office of the law, because it's a major law we work with on a day-to-day basis, or even the pulled up legislation on my supervisor's computer, just to, connect that. The officer not only didn't defer to her, but continued pushing to the point where the girl ran upstairs terrified that she was going to be taken away. And not until he spoke to my supervisor's supervisor did he back off without actually saying he did anything wrong. And I don't expect officers to know every single law, but I do expect respect. And no sensitivity training or diversity recruitment or social worker ride-alongs are ever going to crack that culture. And I would just like to know what are we going to do about that? And that's it.
Thank you very much for sharing. Just underscoring that this is a listening session. We have the opportunity we take copious notes from our listening session. We also record every comment that's provided and then transcribe it for our task force members to review, as well as us that are engaged in the work. So while it is not a Q&A, we thank you. And even though there may be questions posed, we are listening to those questions as we are developing our plan for implementation and our strategies. So thank you very much. Speaker number 2.
Hi.
Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Mazzatesta. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, currently the regional manager for Sun River Health, which used to be Hudson River Healthcare, and I oversee their HIV services and medication-assisted treatment for people with substance use disorder. I'm also the co-founder of Long Island Gay and Lesbian Youth a very long time ago. It was my master's project with David Kilnick many, many years ago. The reason that I wanted to speak today is that I participated this summer in 3 Black Lives Matter protests with my children actually dragged me. I have 2 seniors that go to Belport High School, and they were going and they said, "Mom, are you going?" And I'm a social worker and I've never been to a Black Lives Matter protest, and I kind of felt like maybe it wasn't really my cause. So they shamed me and I went. And I found it inspiring and enlightening. And I was also very much moved. I went to 2 in Belport, 1 in Patchogue, and then we did 1 in Sayville, that the police were some anxious, you could tell. I mean, I can tell I'm a social worker, you could read body language, but mostly we're pretty gracious. I think, and I know from back years ago when Officer Zito, I believe that's his name, and he passed away, he did a lot of LGBT training for the police department. I think that Suffolk County Police Department has been very proactive in trying to work with communities that are oppressed and are marginalized. And I saw and I see when police have to come to remove a patient who is having a disturbance, that they're pretty well trained. Now, they're human and they're fallible and they make mistakes. And there is definitely a disconnect sometimes between the upper echelon of the management of the police department and then I'm gonna say maybe the PBA and some of the rank and file. I don't believe that we need to defund the police. I believe that we need to continue to educate the police. I was very much offended by the billboard that was put up on Montauk Highway by Lowe's that had a picture of de Blasio and Monica Martinez. It was kind of disrespectful. So I think that we have to be mindful, and I think that the police department has to be mindful because billboards like that undercut the good work that the police department does do. And it was in a minority community. So it was just really disrespectful. So I think we have to work better at doing that. That's all I have to say. So thank you for having this. And I'm doing this for my kids. They have to learn going to protests is one thing, but you want action.
Thank you very much, Speaker 2. Thank you, Maria. Speaker number 4, Sean. Speaker number 4, please unmute yourself. Last name McFadden, speaker number 4. One more time, speaker number 4, last name McFadden. Okay, we will come back. Our speaker number 5 has had the opportunity to engage with us in many of our public listening sessions. So we welcome her again this evening. Speaker number 5.
Thank you. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of United for Justice in Policing Long Island. We demand that the legislature enact laws prohibiting all pretextual stops and requiring all law enforcement officers to obtain written informed consent before conducting any warrantless searches for vehicles and their occupants during the traffic stop. These 2 legal changes will dramatically reduce the incidence of racially biased traffic stops and outcomes in our county. And now I'm going to give you some examples of the question about policing. Is policing about bad apples, or is it a systemic problem regarding and requiring transformation? At a local community police meeting, one young man said, "I've been stopped about 100 times, and 20 of them were legitimate." Both the COPE officer and the inspector, not our current one at all, but said, "You must have been doing something wrong." Then we asked, "How can we complain about incidents?" The inspector explained, "There's a complaint form." Then we asked, "Where do you get it?" And he said, "YAPAG, you have to go to YAPAG." This is just not true. And it's an example of a commander and a COPE officer misleading the public. That inspector has since been promoted. Now, another example is with traffic stops and the officers who do them. In the year 2019, there were 136,917 stops in 1 year. This cannot be a matter of a few bad apples. The officers have to put information about each stop in a database. Advocates requested for years that they include longitude and latitude as a way of determining where the place is. It turns out that thousands of the entries, literally thousands, were at the police precinct or a heliport. They were not following orders. They were not completing the report properly, and this was not detected by the department from the top to the bottom. And to me, this indicates a systemic problem. It's not an accident when thousands are doing it. Officers can hide the reality on the ground and not following orders. If you're not following orders, this is not about bad apples. So therefore, these just 2 simple examples show there needs to be a systemic change and a real reprogramming of the department.
Thank you, Speaker 5.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Speaker 6, please unmute yourself. Speaker 6, last name Murray. Please unmute yourself. Speaker 6. Okay, we'll come back to Speaker 6. Also, if we miss a particular speaker, after we finish all the speakers, then we'll come back to those speakers who did not take the opportunity to speak at that time. Speaker number 7.
Hi, can you hear me?
You sure can. Thank you.
Okay, how are you? Good evening all. Pronouns are she, ella, her. My name is Karen Tejada. I'm a first-generation Salvadoran professor at the University of Hartford, and I teach sociology and criminal justice courses. I am on this call, the 3rd one so far, to listen, to learn about and examine community policing relations. Specifically, my research project looks at the interactions between the local police and Salvadorans on Long Island. To do this research, I've been fortunate enough to be welcomed by organizations like LILAC, like Lilac. And this is why I've been able to learn about community policing relations, including these listening sessions. I really appreciate the stories that I'm hearing, but I also hear the trauma, the frustrations, the hopelessness, and hope. I want to speak on behalf of immigrants and their rights. I want to task the task force to collect data on Latinx populations, to consider their enforcement efforts and whether these are even effective, to think about the ethics of working with ICE and whether their involvement compromises trust while exacerbating fear, to not fall prey to the gaslighting around MS-13. There are tons of books about MS-13 and those myths, and I can share resources. To reassess the role of SROs and whether these contribute to over-policing Latinx students, and what are the collateral damages that this incurs in schools, with parents, with school personnel. I'm also concerned about the number of Latinx students that have been arrested according to some of the data that you posted online. In conclusion, I am here to ask for better communication. Language line and respect go a long way. Better data points are on language line use. Better data points on the number of bilingual officers, but not just officers, administrative personnel, staff members, people who have leadership positions. We need to know who of those people are not monolithic, but are trying to be bilingual. And also, I want to put there, maybe there's something that can be done. I know in my university, it's been considered an equity audit. I think that's an important step that any organization can take to make sure that they're fulfilling inclusivity, diversity. The last thing I want to say is to consider your outreach efforts, including the kinds of partnerships that you can create with community-based organizations. That way you can learn about the needs of the communities that you want to serve. And I think this is very important given the fact that, with the COVID, right, those vulnerabilities, the people that were affected by the community, a lot of community-based organizations were having conference calls on how to serve the communities, what were the needs. And so I think those partnerships that the police can make with the community-based organizations circumvent things like a pandemic, and more importantly, also make sure that they fulfill some of the goals in helping and serving the community.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. We realize that you have your hands full, so we gave you a little bit more time so that you could finish your thought process. But it is important. You were all engaged in this work, and we have multiple things that we're doing in our lives. But once again, we thank you for coming on, all of you coming on and taking time out of your schedule to join with us this evening as we are engaged in this work. Speaker number 8. Speaker number 8, if you can unmute yourself, or speaker number 8 has participated in previous task force listening sessions as well. And she's going to be sharing with us this evening. Speaker number 8. Speaker number 8. Last name Lacorte. Last name Lacorte. Speaker number 9, please unmute yourself.
Oh, hello. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I coming in clear?
We can hear you clearly.
Great, thank you. My name is Robert Perez Mendez. Pronouns are he, him, his. Currently, I'm also a student at the Stony Brook Social Work School of Social Welfare. I'm working currently with my internship with the Nassau County Police Department, and I've been working with their mental health department and understanding how, the intricacies of developing, one, the mental health action plan that was asked by Governor Cuomo to be implemented, and two, the impact of mental health interventions preemptively and post-traumatic events can impact the well-being of police departments. I just wanted to discuss today, how to consider that, have that in the foreground in regards to police for officers. We always hear the stories of bad police officers, the bad apples, whatever metaphor you want to use, but the ultimate issue that stems from this police behavior is more often than not, unchecked traumatic events, unchecked trauma, lack of a support network, lack of accountability, and something that should always be in the foreground of our thoughts, or in the foreground of providing assistance to police officers through unions, through employee assistance, various outreaches, is to be more preemptive than reactive. I know I was an EMT for a couple of years, and when I would respond to traumatic events with police officers, our debrief was like a 2-minute, like, hey, you good? You want to talk about it for 5 minutes? But the like motor vehicle accidents, overdoses, those creep up with you down the road. And enough traumatic events in a day, like 3 cardiac arrests in a row, really impact somebody a week or 2 down the road. So I just want to put that out there. And also, like, for my second part of my project, actually my last semester, I want to work on a capstone project with the Suffolk County Police Department in some way in regards to either building mental health awareness or trying to advocate for a preemptive mental health intervention strategy. If I could contact somebody, or at least this task force is more aware of that, that'd be great. I guess I could email this public input email and see if I could help in any way. But yeah, so ultimately, unchecked trauma leads to a lot of toxic coping mechanisms and unhealthy behaviors in first responders down the road. This is how we end up with really, the term I heard is salty responders that have come in that are burnt, their 5th overdose of the day, or their 10th very traumatic call of their 12 to 18-hour shift. If we could provide an assistance in any way with these officers, that would probably lead to much better relations with officers, their traumas, and safer communities.
Thank you very much, Speaker 9. And please feel free to email public.input@suffolkcountyny.gov in reference to the capstone project. So
thank you.
Speaker number 10.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Deborah Little. I'm speaking on behalf of United for Justice and Policing Long Island. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. UJP is demanding that the legislature enact laws prohibiting all pretextual stops and also requiring all law enforcement officers to obtain written informed consent before conducting any warrantless searches of vehicles and occupants. We believe these 2 legal changes will dramatically reduce the incidence of racially biased traffic stops and outcomes in our county. And to that end, I want to speak to some of the findings about traffic stop outcomes. The governor's guidance on policing fully describes the problems with pretextual stops, which is that they are those defined as when an officer uses a minor violation as a pretext to stop, question, or search someone suspected of involvement in a more serious crime. They've been used in a targeted fashion to question and or search individuals in high crime areas on the basis of mere suspicion, rather than the kind of articulable, individualized, and particularized reasonable suspicion required for most stops. The Leadership Conference on Civil Rights has noted that the wide latitude that officers have to conduct these kinds of stops can contribute to distrust between the community and officers. And they also place a heavy burden, on, sorry, just lost my, there it is. They also place a heavy burden on residents of these communities. So UJP's analysis reveals that pretextual stops in our county lie at the heart of many of the inequities in policing. The data reveal that we have a systemic problem in our county. And I want to add that we, UJP, did not want to discover these inequities when our researchers dug down into the data. And we didn't really expect the extent of them. Specifically, we want to share with you the following. Of the 10 top stop reasons, equipment violation, which is pretextual, ranks 3rd behind speeding and other moving violations. It represents about 20% of total stops in the county. It is the top stop reason in the 3rd precinct and the top stop reason in the 1st precinct. Equipment violation is the top stop reason leading to arrest in about 23% of all arrest stops, and blacks are 37% of the arrests. Equipment violation is a top stop reason leading to a vehicle search at about 31%. And again, blacks lead in this category, 45% of vehicle searches.
Equipment violation is the top stop reason resulting in searches of persons at 28%, and Blacks also lead here, a category of 42.6% of person searches.
Ms. Deborah?
Sorry?
I'm sorry, Ms. Deborah, we've gotten to the point of the 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm
if you
sorry.
have additional information you'd like to share with us, but also just for everyone that is on the call, you have the opportunity to review the traffic stop report that was created by the Finn Institute. You have the opportunity to look at that. And if you want to share with us the data that you're looking at as well, Ms. Little, if you're looking at something different than we're looking at, then please feel free to provide that to public.input@suffolkcountiny.ny.gov.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 12. Last name Kinghorn, speaker number 12.
Happened to 11.
Did you skip me, number 11?
Oh, I'm sorry, I sure did. Please forgive me. Speaker number 11.
Yes, my name is Peggy Fort. My pronouns I use are she, her, hers. I'm speaking on behalf of United for Justice in Policing, Long Island. And I specifically wanted to address the part of the Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Guidance issued by Governor Cuomo, where it talks about employing smart and effective policing standards and strategies. And I appreciate the fact that our Suffolk County Police Department and the task force are examining police strategies and looking toward changing them so that they can be more effective. I want to share some analysis that is taken directly from your website, the 2019 statistics from Suffolk County Police Department website. Analysis of traffic data shows that whites make up 67% of the population, but they accounted for 51% of total traffic stops. Blacks, with a population of 8%, accounted for 19% of total traffic stops, and Hispanics, with a population of 19%, accounted for 24% of total traffic stops. Asians, with a population of 4%, accounted for 2.3% of total stops. And it's clear from your statistics, that Blacks and Hispanics were stopped significantly more per population than white and Asian residents. Speeding was the #1 stop reason with more than 21% of total stops. Whites account for 59% of those stops, Hispanics 19%, Blacks 15%, almost twice as much per Black population. Other moving violations is the #2 stop reason with nearly 21% of total stops. Whites accounts for 52% of those stops, Hispanics 23%, Blacks 19%. Both Blacks and Hispanics are stopped more than the population would indicate they should be. Equipment violation is the #3 stop reason with nearly 20% of total stops. Whites account for 41% of those stops, Hispanics 31%, over 1.5 times their population. While Blacks 24% were stopped for equipment violations, 3 times the Black population. Lastly, equipment violation was the #1 stop reason, resulting in issuance of a verbal warning at nearly 31% of the total. Blacks accounted for 45% of those verbal warnings, which accounted for 33% of all verbal warnings issued to Blacks. So my question is, were these stops really necessary? All of these stops lead to creating a climate of intimidation and fear. While the goal of the department is to build trust, community engagement, this only creates mistrust and is really traumatizing to Black and Hispanic communities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And once again, my statistics are taken directly from the Suffolk County Police Department website, particularly, specifically 2019, which I might add is when.
Thank you, Speaker 11. Much appreciated. And as I said before, that information is also on our task force website. You'll be able to look at the report and the analysis, speaking very similarly to the information that she was providing as well. Speaker number 12, last name Kinghorn, speaker number 12. Speaker number 12, last name Kinghorn, speaker number 12. Are you unmuted, speaker number 12? Okay. Speaker number 13. Speaker number 13, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Thank you, speaker number 13. She's going to provide comment. She has provided comment in our past public listening session, so we welcome you again this evening.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Mariah Prince, and I'm also speaking on behalf of United in Justice for Policing. And I'm also demanding that the legislature enact laws prohibiting all pretextual stops and require all officers to obtain written and informed consent before conducting any warrantless searches of vehicles and their occupants during traffic stops. These two changes will reduce systemic racism in our communities. At previous listening sessions, I myself shared some of my stories of being stopped by the police, and many other people of color have shared their stories of being stopped, their traumatic stories of being stopped by the police. And some of our white community members shared, admitted that they may have never been stopped by the police, or when they were stopped by the police, they were showed leniency. And the data that was analyzed also supports this. And if you look at them by precinct level, which I want to share with everyone, which some of you may already be familiar. Okay, I'll turn my camera on. So I'm going to share this chart, and this is the first precinct. So right here, it shows you 11 in the first precinct, Black people make up 11% of the population. Though they make up 11% of the population, they make up 33% of all stops. White people make up 70% of the population, and they make up only 40% of all stops. Hispanics make up 15% of the population, but they make up 21% of all stops. Asian makes up 4%, and they make up 1% of all stops. So there's a clear disparity in the first precinct between how many people of color are stopped and how many white people are stopped. If you look at data from the second precinct, same pattern. Black people make up 5% of the population, but they make up 15% of all traffic stops. Whites make up 77% of the population, but they make up 53% of all traffic stops. Though Hispanics only make up 14% of the population, they make up 25% of all traffic stops. Asians, though they make up 6% of the population, 2% of all traffic stops. So there's, in the second precinct, there's also that clear disparity that people of color are disproportionately stopped. If you look at the data for the third precinct, is the same exact pattern. Though Blacks only make up 11% of the population, they make up 20% of all stops. Though 48% of the population is white, they only make up 27% of all stops. Though Hispanics are 37% of the population, 48% of all stops, same pattern. And if you look at the data for the fourth precinct, same pattern. Though Blacks only make up 3% of the population, they make up 11% of all stops. Though Hispanics make up 10% of the population, they make up 19% of all stops.
Mariah, it's Vanessa. You have exceeded the time, but if you'd be more than willing, and many people have asked if you'd be willing to share that information. So if you want to provide a link to that information in the chat, that's fine. And we'd love for you to share that with public.info at suffolkcountiny.ny.gov.
Sure. And the fifth precinct, same pattern. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
No problem. Thank you. Speaker number 14, please unmute yourself. Last name Bellucci, speaker 14. Speaker number 15, please unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so I'm new to this. I am just a regular community member. My name is Beth, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I basically contacted I work with the 5th precinct, as a community member. And about 6 years ago, we had some crime in our area in my neighborhood, and I wanted to take it a step up and do something about it. So I contacted Inspector Silva and worked with our COPE officer, and we established a neighborhood watch. And this is something completely different from what's been discussed tonight, but I just wanted to say that all the positive things that I've dealt with the 5th precinct, as far as, you know, dealing with the petty crimes and the larcenies and, you know, other, you know, crimes, drug crimes that have happened in our neighborhood, and how they've been very responsive and very, you know, informative of what's been going on. And the community meetings are very informative as well. I try to attend them as much as I can. And another thing I'd like to point out is about in 2019, I a member of the Civilian Academy, Suffolk County Police, came to one of those meetings, discussed, you know, joining the Suffolk County Police Civilian Academy, and just to learn the ropes of what the police go through in training. And I highly recommend this as a, you know, as a tool for those who are unfamiliar with the training that they go through. It was very informative. You go through drill patterns. You really think about how an officer thinks, you know, from a civilian standpoint. It's completely different. And it was very informative. So this is something completely different from what is being discussed tonight, but I just wanted to say how positive it has been with my experience with the police academy, you know, the 5th precinct, and I have nothing but anything good to say.
Thank you for sharing, Speaker 15. Beth, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaker number 16, do you still want to speak, Mayor, since you spoke earlier? Okay, Mayor Pontieri has already spoken. Speaker 17, please unmute yourself, Speaker 17. Last name Skelly. Speaker 17, last name Skelly.
Oh, yeah, here I am. I was speaker 18, I believe, but.
Are you? Let me just double check. No, I have Speaker 17 Skelly.
All right, well.
So, thank you.
Doesn't matter. Okay, I am Joan Skelly, speaking on behalf of United for Justice and Policing. And again, my issues revolve around data transparency, data collection, and data analysis. And these recommendations would include, obviously, the data that is being collected by for traffic stops, but additionally in calls for service, 911 calls by the precinct and the sector, officer-initiated activity, specifically enforcement activities, pedestrian, bicycle, vehicle stop, tickets, issues, and arrest by precinct and sector. UCR Part 1 and Part 2 crime and arrest data by precinct and sector. This is already provided to the Department of Criminal Justice Services, but not available to the public. Motor vehicle accidents and related injuries, fatalities, and value of property, again reported by precinct and sector. Hate crimes, including the demographics and the type of incident. IAB complaints, quarterly report to include the demographics of the complainant and the officer and the type of complaint, precinct, sector, and department. The data for traffic stops and officer-initiated activity must include race, sex, national origin, gender, identity, and expression and sexual orientation of the civilian, sector information, latitude and longitude of the interaction, duration of the interaction. The number, gender, and race of officers involved, the nature of the restraint used, canine, physical hold, handcuffs, the type of force used, again, canine, physical, baton, taser, the nature and extent of any injuries sustained by any subjects in officers or others involved, particularly in canine deployments and use of force. Specific code violations that predicates each stop and the top statutory charges for those who are ticketed and arrested. Researchers and advocates indicate that this information is necessary to adequately analyze data for the incidents of racial bias. I will conclude by saying that all data fields must be filled in accurately and completely by the officers. Suffolk County Police should publish a glossary of terms and codes used in reporting and specific policies to enforce data collection and publish the policies on the website. All data collected must be published quarterly on the website for public review and analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker 17. Speaker 18. Speaker 18.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Jessica Rosenthal. I'm the rabbi at B'nai Israel Reform Temple in Oakdale. I want to thank everyone here who shared all of this very important information, experience, and all of the data. I also want to start out by saying that diversity and sensitivity training are important for all organizations who are in a position of power. Also important, I want to share a small snapshot of the very special outreach that I have felt from Commanding Officer Inspector William Silva in the 5th Precinct. In addition to the amazing partnership that was forged before I arrived on Long Island, made with my predecessor, I have been very moved by the outreach, authenticity, and sincerity that has been shared with our congregational community. What I witnessed in 2019 was an unprecedented shift in anti-Semitic incidents, a 12% jump, the most that has been since any year that it's been tracked in the last 4 decades. The state with the most cases was New York, and that was 430 incidents. Officer Silva and the 5th Precinct went above and beyond reaching out. They helped us in training in security, how to confront active shooters and threats. They reached out to the synagogues and temples in the area and brought us together to meet and have the opportunity to discuss personal safety challenges, grants, and areas for help and improvement. And the thing that struck me the most when we had all these meetings was the importance that was talked about in terms of reaching out to the community, of listening and connecting, of stating that we can't serve people if we don't know them, can't relate to them, and don't understand their challenges. I thought that was extremely powerful and certainly at the heart of many of these challenges. And so I want to say thank you to the 5th Precinct and thank you to everyone here. These are very important issues, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this perspective.
Thank you very much, Speaker 18. Speaker 19. Speaker 19 has also attended our previous listening sessions, and we look forward to our comments this evening. Speaker 19.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak again. My name is Carolyn Gammerman, and I'm a member of Long Island United to Transform Policing and Community Safety. I'm speaking today about accountability and transparency for police interactions with persons experiencing a crisis of mental health, substance abuse, or homelessness. Accountability to taxpayers involves at least the following 2 factors: transparency of data, policies and procedures, and the delivery of appropriate cost-effective services. I've reviewed the resources on your website, and the only data relevant to these populations are the numbers of 911 calls and the total police service responses. I would like more complete data and also information about the criteria used for determining that data to be made available as a matter of standard procedure to the general public. When our county officials, envisioning themselves as national leaders, are planning reforms, they must consider collecting and providing accurate data that truly captures how people, especially those of color, experiencing a mental health, substance abuse, or homelessness crisis are managed from their first point of contact with the police, such as a phone call or on the street, to the conclusion of their interaction with law enforcement. Furthermore, there should be the following: transparency of procedures to code, dispatch, and deliver services; transparency of data relevant to culturally competent treatment and a resolution of the crisis; and transparency of data in contract with a separate entity who gathers the data and conducts data analysis. And I know this is happening in other states, like in Georgia and California. Not infrequently, in media from across the county, there is data of an overlap of certain demographics in terms of representation of people of color in jails and prisons, people with mental illness, substance abuse, and homelessness also overrepresented. And they tend to be incarcerated for longer periods of time, and their rate of recidivism is higher. I have to ask you, what is the most cost-effective way to remedy these issues within the criminal justice system? It is my feeling that perhaps the best thing we can do is prevent their initial contact or entry into that system. And therefore, I fully support an alternate first responder system such as DASH, and that there be a phone number as that first point of contact so that police are only involved if safety is an issue.
Thank you, Speaker 19.
You're welcome.
Speaker number 20. Please unmute yourself, speaker number 20.
Hello, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, hi, my name is Anne Marie. I'm speaking as a resident of the 5th Precinct. I've been attending the 5th Precinct's community meetings for about 7 years now. I personally feel that Inspector Silva and the 5th Precinct they have an excellent relationship with the community and always try to find ways to reach out in positive ways. They've been a great help to me in my community to get rid of drugs and drug dealers. We call them, and in a moment's notice, they help us. They're just unbelievable, the response time. In the beginning of this call, Vanessa, you mentioned fair, just, and equitable policing in Suffolk County, and I totally agree. But the bottom line is respect from both sides. Officers should not be profiling their traffic stops, and when you're being pulled over, or whatever the situation might be with the police, you need to respect them and act appropriately. No attitudes, simply comply, whether it's your first time or your 20th time being pulled over. Parents and community groups should be emphasizing this rather than encouraging hate and violence. The police are not the enemy. They're simply trying to keep law and order and allow hardworking people to live without fear. I feel that lumping all police into one negative category is completely unfair and can have damaging effect on a community. When officers start to second guess their years of training or worry about who's watching and criticizing a situation where they only see a portion of what actually occurred, public safety is at risk. Perhaps we can work together to teach the community how to interact with authority and continue to work with officers to provide updated training to de-escalate situations. The bottom line is, if you aren't breaking the law or carrying anything illegal, you shouldn't have anything to worry about during a traffic stop or any kind of police interaction. That's all.
Thank
you for your time.
Thank you, Speaker 20. Speaker 21, please unmute yourself.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I have a macro and micro statements to make. My macro statement is that in the early 70s, the 1st Precinct commander happened to be an African-American young man, Gene Hamilton. We have not had a precinct commander since that was African-American. I've been fighting this fight a long time as far as how minorities are represented on the police department in Suffolk County. And as of now, if you look at the hierarchy in Suffolk County Police Department, as far as African Americans, it is very woeful. But I've been fighting this fight for a long time. So that's my micro issue. I think also that since individuals who do pass the police officers test and they're put in the civil service exam, they are qualified to be police officers. And I know right now you have to hire the people from the top of the list down. I think if things could be changed where precinct commanders or commanders could hire people off the list who are qualified because they passed the test, that they could hire people that represent the population in their communities, I think that would go a long way. My micro, I live in Patchogue. My office is, my name is Adrian Fasten. I'm Chief Executive Officer of Economic Opportunity Council of Suffolk. My main office is in Patchogue. We have a child care center there, and I live in Patchogue. I would say I've seen a big difference since Commander Silva has taken over the 5th Precinct as far as how he deals with the public. There's a long way to go for every precinct, and I will say every commander is only as good as the cards they are dealt, which means the officers that they were given. But I've seen a remarkable change in Patchogue. So I still think we have a long way to go. And I also want to say with the parades, the Black Lives Matters demonstrations, how well they were handled by the 5th Precinct. I would say that we still have a long way to go. I still have a lot of issues with what's going on the macro level. But in the 5th Precinct, I'm very pleased that I live and my company is in the 5th Precinct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker 21. Speaker 22. Speaker 22 has been a speaker on some of our other calls as well. So we thank you and we welcome you this evening to share new information I know that you're going to be able to provide to us today. Speaker 22.
Yes, hi, it's nice to see you again, Lynn Kaufman. So the police are tasked with enforcing the law, but as we know from the Newsday report, they enforce the law unevenly. Bias in traffic stops, and I'm glad we're talking about traffic stops tonight because that's what I wanted to talk about, is very well documented. Black and brown citizens are pulled over at much higher rates than whites, we know that. And we do things that we don't even think about. For example, PBA cards. We live in a county where police have this thing called a PBA card. And if you're a business owner or if your friends and family of policemen, not only do they give them to you, they teach you how to use them. So they say, when you get pulled over, take out your license and registration and then put that PBA card on top. And that means you're not going to get a ticket. How awful is that? Either we have constant policing or we don't. We have fair policing or we don't. There is a culture in policing, just like there's a culture in every business that we have and every group of people that get together. But I am part of Long Island United to transform policing and community safety, and I am on the traffic work group. And we have done a ton of research over the last few weeks, researching how to traffic the roads without the police. We have reached out to San Diego and we have reached out to Cambridge, Massachusetts. We've looked at programs in Minnesota and New Orleans, and we are going to be submitting a report to you. We're in the process of writing it now. That is going to be asking for the creation of an unarmed road safety division of the Highway Department. The Highway Department is tasked with keeping our roads safe physically, and we need it to be safe when it comes to traffic as well. When you have armed police in traffic stops and things start to go awry, there can be deadly consequences. We've seen that on the news many times. Our group will be focused on road safety, not looking for criminal activity. There will not be pretextual stops allowed because we're simply there to make the roads safer. They'll be ticketing cars for speeding and moving violations. And most importantly, they're going to be issuing vouchers for equipment problems. So if you have a broken tail light, we're not going to make a criminal out of you, ticket you, make you pay a fine. We're going to give you a voucher so you can get it fixed so that our roads will be safer. Only have 27 seconds left, but I just want to say, please, there is a cop in Savannah. His name is Patrick Skinner. Please write that down. Please look him up. He's got articles in the Washington Post and on Vox. He's been on NPR. He's a cop and he's ex-CIA. And he says the problem in policing are that we have, it's the rise in the warrior cop. We have militarized our police. We have stopped treating our neighbors, our citizens as neighbors. We treat them as civilians and we act as if we're in a war. And we need to, please look him up, read him, educate yourselves on what he has, and please get our report when we send.
Thank you, Speaker 22. You've exceeded the time frame, but feel free. We've written his name down. We will do as many recommend in these task force meetings. We take the opportunity to review all of the research and all of the individuals that are highlighted to us. So thank you very much, Speaker 22. Speaker 23.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is, I'm the Reverend Terrence Buckley. I am the rector, or for some more common term, pastor of Christ Episcopal Church in the village of Bellport. And I was going to make a few comments about Inspector Bill Silva of the 5th Precinct, but I hear many people who have preceded me have already sang his praises. So I was going to just add to the praise because I have nothing but respect for Inspector Silva. I I have been leading this parish in Bellport for almost 4 years now. I was not familiar with the Bellport area when I was first sent here by the bishop. And I thought, you know, it seems like a very nice area, Bellport, no problems. It's a lovely little town. And I thought it would be, you know, just very uneventful, and I can just go about the business of pastoral care and leading my parish. But unfortunately, I suppose that was a naive view. And we had several incidents here in the last 3.5 years, which required the intervention of the police, much to my surprise and chagrin. And I would just like to comment that the officers who responded here, and this did not just affect the church, this affected my family and I personally, because we live right next door to the church. We had some criminal incidents here, and the officers who responded were wonderfully professional, very effective, very concerned for our safety and our well-being. And I've since developed a very positive working relationship with Inspector Silva and the 5th Precinct. As other speakers before me have attested to, he's very responsive. He is a neighbor, and I agree with the prior speaker that the police and the community must see each other as neighbors. And that's the feeling I've gotten from the officers that have responded here. There has been so many positive outreach, so much positive outreach from the Suffolk County Police Department and the 5th Precinct, including the tree and menorah lighting ceremonies every year, of which I've been honored to be partake in for the prayer service. The Clergy Police Council, which I have been invited to take part in, whereby the police department works through the clergy and the houses of worship out on Long Island in Suffolk County to better the situation for all concerned, including not just the churches, the congregations of the churches, but the communities in which we find ourselves, particularly communities of color. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me speak, and I look forward to hearing what the rest of the speakers have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaker 24, please unmute yourself. Speaker 24, last name Sasankin. Speaker 24. He will come back. Speaker 25. Speaker 25, last name Siska.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Gary Siska. I'm a lifetime resident of Bohemia, as were my parents and grandparents, were old Czech residents, go back to the 1800s. We've seen changes over the policing over the years. It used to be Town of Islip Police when I was a little kid. I'm also an auxiliary police officer in the 5th Precinct. I did 35 years in the 3rd, and 5 years ago was transferred to the 5th as the commanding officer of the auxiliary volunteer force. And just wanted to reiterate some of the things that were said. We have a lot of community outreach programs within the 5th. For the Hispanic community, we have a separate community meeting in Spanish language. We do the tree lighting, menorah lighting, as Pastor Buckley just said. And I feel very proud to be part of that. Certainly there are room for improvement on several issues, but I'm very proud of how this precinct works and the department in general. That is my comment.
Thank you. I'd just like our members on the call tonight and the public that's on the call tonight is that we also have the Chief of Police that's on the call with us, Chief Cameron. I don't know if he wants to say a few words, but he had to join us late because he had another meeting, but he is on the call with us this evening. Speaker number 26. Speaker number 26, please unmute yourself. Last name Smith.
Hey, Vanessa, it's Robert Ray here again, President CEO of Agape Waymaker. I spoke last time. I spoke last time about mental health. This time I want to speak about equality in the 5th Precinct, as well as the communities that the 5th Precinct looks over. So my issue is equality. I see that there's a huge, Geraldine Hart was just on the news last week. They had a big prostitution takedown here in the Center Reach community. The 5th precinct seems to not care about prostitution issues and sex slavery and things that's going on in the community, because all these in hotels that's around here in these communities, the Medford, East Islip, Bellport area, it's all a prostitution ring. And the issue is, I think that they don't care is because the majority of the escorts and prostitutes, whatever you want to call them, they are all Caucasian people. They are all white people, and it seems to be ignored. I know that they're struggling with addiction issues. Me being a licensed mental health therapist, I deal with them and I see them when they come off the streets. And it's a huge prostitution ring going on in the community. The 5th precinct seems to not care. I mean, they're charging the drug dealers that's selling heroin with murder. Meanwhile, they're not forcing these people to use drugs. So the drug dealer is African American and they're going to jail for murder, but the Caucasian is still being at the hotels prostituting themselves. Yes, it's sex slavery, but some of the stuff that's going on in this community is willing behavior. I've happened to be at work one day. I was going to visit somebody. They bust into the hotel and they let the prostitute go. I mean, how could you let the prostitute go while not going to jail when they're selling themselves? I mean, this is a problem in this community. And Geraldine Hart, I hope you're listening to what I'm saying. It's a problem. The 5th precinct has to do better. The prostitution in this area is out of control. It is taking over. It's an opioid pandemic here with the doctors in this community, and no one's doing anything. I know that the opioids and what's going on, we had a huge problem a couple of years ago with the mass shootings here in the area with the pharmacies. There's a problem in this community, and I think the 5th precinct could do better. I mean, some of the organized protests that I had in the community, we had over 30 cops at some of these protests. I don't understand, and I'm not even joking, 30 cops at the protests. We're peaceful protesters. The most that we have is about 200 to 300 protesters, but there's no need to have 30 cops at my organized protests. So that's the equality. They come out like we're terrorists, but meanwhile, they could be doing other things. I mean, I would think sex slavery and prostitution is more important to deal with. And also with the Black community, Black and brown community, right now, there's a girl missing in the Riverhead School District. No one seems to care about that, okay? She's been missing since the 17th. Today is now the 1st, and no one cares. This is what happens with the Black and brown community. We are continuously, always ignored. Missing teenage girl, 17 years old, Hispanic girl is missing, and no one is doing anything. There was no dogs, there was no planes.
Speaker
the family is distraught right now. This is sad.
Speaker 26, thank you for sharing the information. If you have additional comments that you would like to provide, please send it to public.input@suffolkcountiny.gov. Thank you for sharing. Speaker 27. Speaker 27.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Kennedy. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Patchogue Chamber of Commerce. I had a conversation with Inspector Silva last week, and he made me aware of this forum. So this is my first time in engaging in this conversation here. And certainly there's an amazing number of important issues that are being discussed here that I am not educated enough to really speak directly on, but I can speak directly on the relationship that I have with the 5th Precinct here in the Chamber of Commerce and how active and how responsive they've been to us. I know our chamber is very taxing to the 5th Precinct in that we do a lot of events in our community, and they're always very supportive and they're always very there, and they've been addressing many issues that have come up in a very respectful way from my perspective. I am also proud, I heard Adrian Facette speak earlier. Adrian is a member of our chamber, and I certainly look to him for more guidance and dealing some of these issues that are being discussed here today. And my chamber stands ready to respond in any way we can when it comes to supporting the community. We're very grateful and thankful for the police and what they've done for us. I think of an incident we had with our Live After 5 that we themed in celebration of Pride Month in the LGBTQ community, and how supportive they were when me personally was threatened daily and received some very disturbing letters directed at me in doing that event, and how the 5th Precinct was very supportive and really supported the event and supported us doing that event. And we were really very grateful for that. So I would like to continue to be included in these kind of discussions because I think they're very important here. And this was very educating for me, and I appreciate that. But again, we're very thankful for the way the police has always been attuned to the growth of Patchogue and what we've become. And we continue to look forward to work on that positive relationship. So I thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Speaker 27. Speaker 28, if you can unmute yourself. Speaker 28 also has spoken at some of our previous public listening sessions. So we welcome you, Speaker 28, and we hope that you are sharing some additional information with us this evening.
Yeah, so hello, my name's Terrell Dozier, he, him, his. And as mentioned, so every listening session I've been on, I've been here to try to provide some research-based structural reforms to enhance public safety on Suffolk County. But tonight I actually want to say something in a different vein. Last time we met, Commissioner Hart, you ended the meeting in what I personally believe was somewhat in bad taste. I have no qualm with you personally, and I'm sure you are a caring and kind person. But I was disheartened at the end of that session because in the faces of your constituents overwhelmingly pleading for systemic change, you chose to protect the ego of the department, promoting positive experiences, your positive experiences with your officers, instead of empathizing with those sharing the stories you heard, reflecting on them, and then committing to institutional reform. And that practice reflects the blue wall of silence that so many here have been victim to. Nobody here is looking to disparage any officer. Nobody here is looking to demonize and devalue the police. We're here to share a vision of a safer community that may include the police, but do not solely rely upon them. That may give police power, but do not do so indiscriminately and without the voice of the community that they serve. At the end of your talk last time, Commissioner Hart, you mentioned the names of 2 Suffolk officers who were murdered in the line of duty. And I want to be clear, no one rejoices over those deaths. The weight and the pain of those lost lives are real. Their lives mattered. But so did Kevin Turner's, whose life was taken at a traffic stop in 2010. And the other victims of Officer Kenneth Hamilton, who had 7 complaints of excessive force on his record. So does Michael Moran, who was shot unnecessarily in Dunkin' Donuts, and Daniel McConnell, who was pinned down in a flooded cell and tased so many times that the state report said it was a preventable homicide that the Suffolk police, the district attorney, and the medical examiner all failed to properly investigate. So do the victims of Detective Tulio Serrata, who was sued 5 times for over excessive force. The victim of Daniel Salvatore, who was engaging in inappropriate sexual misconduct.
Terrell, you are frozen. Terrell had 35 seconds left. So if Terrell?
My computer shut down, but luckily my fiance is on the call.
Okay.
I would like to.
You have 25 seconds left, so continue, Terrell.
So does the life of Kenny Lazo, who we know was beaten to death. And I want to say to the task force members here that we are looking to you to honor those stories as well, to say those lives matters as well, and that they deserve, those stories deserve the reforms that you are looking to create. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker 28. Speaker 29, if you can unmute yourself. Speaker 29 has also spoken at previous public listening sessions. So Speaker 29, we are thankful that you are on and hopeful that you are sharing some additional information with us this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaniqua, and I want to start off by saying that I am a community member, and I also am the convener for Long Island United. I know that it was mentioned before that we've been on here multiple times speaking. You want to hear from the community. So I just wanted to remind you that we are community members, that we live on Long Island, and we care about what's going on Long Island. So with that being said, I'd also like to talk a little bit about homelessness tonight and police reform overall. I had the privilege of attending today's session with the legislature, in which I was appalled by the fact that we were supposed to be talking about campaign refinance, and they made it all about police reform. Every question that they asked the people, they had them on there for at least additional 10 minutes, berating them, being disrespectful to them, some of these legislators. Being dismissive to them, going on and on with them about how they do not feel like Black and brown communities matter. They were not acknowledging the fact of what has been done, how our communities receive racism more, how our communities have less resources. They just kept comparing it and giving us their all lives matter and white supremacy remarks. And I was appalled. When we talked about reform and talked about shifting money out of police budgets and putting it back into those communities, they were basically yelling. So when I sit here on this call today and talk with you all about reform, and once you create a plan, you're going to have to go bring it back to the legislature for approval. And after all those comments that made, and the legislators that we thought were open and possibly on our side, who sat there and said nothing, I'm a little alarmed and wondering how far we're actually going to go in this process of creating real structural change. So really quickly, I know I have about a minute left. When talking about homelessness, a lot of times we've heard that we work with organizations during the day, but once 5 o'clock comes, those organizations close. Well, we need to shift money from the police officers and put it into supporting those organizations, so that way they could do the job at night and we don't have to have armed police officers there. We don't have to worry about paying cops more money to do overtime. We need to put the money and the resources with organizations that are actually trained to handle and deal with these kind of people. We don't need to be having armed officers that are going to arrest people for trying to feed homeless people. So yes, we need to shift the money out of the police budget and put it to where it deserves, to really make sure that our communities are strong, resourceful communities, just like the white ones are.
Thank you, Speaker 29. If you have additional comments, I know you said you were cutting it short, so if you have additional comments, please feel free to provide to public.input@suffolkcountynY.gov. And maybe this also will be part of the information based on the tentative meeting on December 16th that we have with your organization. Thank you. Speaker number 30.
Hi, good evening, Vanessa. Can you hear me?
You sure can.
Okay. My name is Neil Zarconi. I'm representing the Bayport Blue Point School District. I serve as the high school assistant principal, chief emergency officer, project SAVE coordinator, as well as the administrator in charge of our school security team. On behalf of the district superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, who wanted to be on this call tonight, he's running our school board of education meeting. He asked me to speak for him. We just want to give a thanks to the Suffolk County Police Department, in particular the 5th Precinct. We want to thank them for the support over the years and the relationship that they've developed with our district. We appreciate the continued support from the 5th, whether it be in the area of school safety, responding to medical emergencies that occur in our schools, the ability for our superintendent to be able to personally communicate with Inspector Silva and his leadership team up at the 5th. Issue warrants, the role of the SRO and their support, whether it be observing emergency drills. Sometimes there's issues that arise that we call them prior to calling 911 to get their input on certain situations. The SRO, our SRO retired. We recently got a new one. She's in 66 schools from what I understand. I know this because she's already reached out to us. She's been in 2 of our buildings, met our building administration, has toured our buildings, has been in our schools. She's met our superintendent as well. So I thank the role of the SRO. I want to say thank you to the local sector cars and the zone sergeants. You know, not only do they know our school address and where the building's located, but they do come in and they get a tour of the building with an administrator or one of our security personnel. So we do appreciate that. You know, in the case of an emergency, it's nice that they know the layout of the school, so they know what they're walking into. So again, just from the Bayport Blue Point schools, I want to say thanks to the continued partnership that we have with the Suffolk County Police Department, the 5th Precinct, and Inspector Silva. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker number 31, please unmute yourself.
My pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of the Youth Power Project at Make the Road, New York. I am a sophomore in high school. Thank you for hosting this public session. Policing reform should include removing police from places we should never have placed them in, including schools. After decades of increasing the number of police officers in schools, there is no conclusive evidence that police officers and dehumanizing security measures like metal detectors and scanning makes schools safer. There is evidence that the presence of police officers in school criminalizes normal youthful behavior of students of color, resulting in harsher school discipline and pushing them into the criminal justice system. Police officers in our schools are dangerous for our most vulnerable students, students most likely to be pushed into the school to prison pipeline and the school to deportation pipeline, including students with disabilities, Black students, and immigrant students. My Black and brown friends shouldn't be scared to walk around the hallways. Cops with guns don't make it feel like a safe environment. Why do my peers that go to nearby schools with the majority of Black and brown students have to face the fear and trauma of metal detectors and police, while I go to a majority white school and I don't need to go home and process a journey through a militarized school? Research shows students that attend schools with police and metal detectors feel less safe. Police are a barrier to creating safe and supportive school environments. To create safe, supported, and just school environments, we should remove police and funding for police in schools and increase funding for social, emotional, and mental health support. To me, police-free schools mean that we all get to have the equal opportunity to feel comfortable and safe without the intimidation of police trying to push us out of schools and into the school to prison pipeline. Our schools are already underfunded and overcrowded. The small amount of money we do have should not be given to allow or support police in schools. We do not need better trained police in schools. We need more guidance counselors, restorative justice coordinators, social workers, staff trained to support our social and mental health needs. We need more teachers, textbooks, more electives, more after-school programs. School districts across the country are removing police from schools. It's time for Long Island to lead the way in New York and show queer, Black, Indigenous, disabled, and students of color that we care about them.
Thank you very much, Speaker 31, for sharing. Speaker 32, please unmute yourself. Speaker 32, last name to tick. Speaker 32, last name to tick. Speaker 33, please unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Claire DeRoche. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a community member, and I'm also a proud member of Long Island United to Transform Policing and Community Safety. I'm glad to be here with many other members of our coalition. Tonight, I'd like to address a question posed in the Governor's Resource Guide for Police Reform. Do we want police to respond to calls regarding the homeless? As a member of Long Island United, I participate in the work group studying alternative non-police responses for people in mental health crises, crises involving drug use, and also people who are experiencing homelessness. We have been researching many models, and the ones that are the most effective in responding to these crises, we have found are the ones that do not involve the police. These models follow the 30-year success of the Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets, or CAHOOTS program in Eugene, Oregon. This program has reportedly saved the city $8.5 million a year and resulted in drastic reductions in incarceration and criminalization of the community. Similar models are being introduced in many cities throughout the nation. I would like to specifically address the response to homelessness and ask the task force to think about whether or not we want police to be involved in responding to these people in their time of crisis. As we know, homelessness is not a crime. That's right, homelessness is not a crime. Unfortunately, our homeless community members are often treated like criminals. So, do we want police to respond to calls regarding the homeless? Might we develop a better option, an intervention that supports our community members and connects them to the social safety net and resources they need? An intervention that doesn't criminalize them and force them into an endless cycle of courts and jails, leading to increased emotional trauma and a drain on taxpayer dollars. Therefore, I am asking that the plan created by this task force recommend a non-police response to 911 calls related to homeless individuals, as well as increased funding for homeless services. Let's take the money we spend criminalizing our community members and instead invest in supporting them. Thank you for your time and for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Speaker 33. Speaker 34, please unmute yourself.
Hi, yes.
Hello.
I'm actually getting on here tonight because I think it just needs to be said that a lot of the police in the 5th precinct and the 7th precinct are very young, very rambunctious individuals who I feel are more evasive than help. Like, do you understand? I feel when they approach you, that they approach you very abrasive. And I think there's a very big problem with mental health issues, that people who get approached like that, who don't understand or aren't comprehending what's going on, like, it gets misconstrued. And personally myself, I wrote it in the chat, at the age of 16, was the victim of an assault by a police officer, and I was arrested for a resisting arrest, and that marked me for life. Every single time I had an encounter with a cop after that, they looked at me like I was the scum. And I just wanted to speak out, and I wrote her name in the chat and everything because I just want her to know that she ruined my life. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Speaker, for sharing your experience. And thank you for the courage to come forward. Thank you. Speaker number 35, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm just here to talk on behalf of precinct number 5. I'm a member of the community also, and I just do want to mention what a great job they are doing. I know that this might not go along with what everyone else is here, but I came here and was asked to come here and speak of my positive experiences. I know I have also Officer Nick Vezzi. He was a wonderful officer, turned around. They are very good with the children in the community. They respond at all times. We've had a few robberies. I've had my car broken into. The police officers were here, you know, as fast as we called them. We've had very positive relationships with the 5th precinct in this in the community that I am, and I am very grateful for their positive work here. You know, I didn't realize what this forum was going to be about. I'm a first-time speaker. And I'm sorry, you know, if I didn't come as prepared, but I do have the 2 minutes, and I'd like to take a moment and just say, as a taxpayer, as a full-time working mom, my husband is working 2 almost full-time jobs. He's never home with the kids and I. We're always working. You know, coming from a military family and a family with my father was 40 years in the FDNY. I got my 2 brothers in corrections officers in Rikers Island. You know, I just want to know, as a taxpayer in the community, and we're all community members here, you know, and I know there's a lot, I'm old, I'm sorry for the young people here, you know, but, you know, where is the accountability for ourselves within the community? And we hear a lot of people talking, you know, about the accountability of the police, but maybe sometimes we should take accountability of ourselves and really look at that sometimes too, before just going right off at the police officers. And, you know, having people having to put their lives on the line day in, day out. You know, a lot of the speakers were talking about social services and looking into the mental welfare of the police officers as well. You know, there is no training for what some of these officers see on a daily basis, the horror stories that they do see on a daily basis. And it's nice to have all these people out here that are statisticians that can read data, and it's very nice to have all of that reported back. But, you know, as a taxpayer in the community, I'd like to know the accountability for members in the community that we are all living in. Thank you. And it's really nice to see how we're supposed to respect each other in the chat. And over again, it's, you know, white people this, white people that, white people this. And it's very sad to have to read that. So everyone have a great night, and thank you for the time, for letting me have time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker 35. Speaker 36, please unmute yourself.
How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be more of a community board meeting. But I've been participating, you know, listening to you guys for the last 2 hours. So I'll have, you know, my 3 minutes to say. First of all, I wanted to wonder why you guys don't say the Pledge of Allegiance when you guys start your meeting. You know, I think we should respect America, respect all Americans. Also, in regards to the people that have been talking, I always treat people how you want your family to be treated. That's, you know, goes for cops, goes for civilians. You know, there's good people out there, there's bad people out there, there's good cops out there, there's bad cops out there. You know, you have to treat people how, you know, you want your family to be treated. That's how I live, and that's hopefully how police officers and all community members would live. And as far as the first couple people with those crime stats, when you look at crime stats, you have to look at the whole crime stat. You have to look at the race of the callers if you want to go that route. You have to look at the victims, the arrests. You know, you just can't look at the end results. You have to look at the whole picture of who's calling the police, why are they calling the police. If you want to go race of the victims, race of the arrests. You know, that it should be looked at the whole cause and effect of the whole incident, not just, you know, looking at one particular piece of the information. And I'm all in for transparency. All this information should be out to the public. As far as defunding the police, I'm totally against that. You could see the last couple months what's happened to the crime and the riots and looting and everything that's been going on. I'm all for more social, you know, if you want to get social workers in there to address, cops shouldn't be social workers. If you want to hire more social workers to address the needs of the homeless and everything, that's fine with me. I have no problem with that. The real reason why I called tonight was actually I wanted to thank Inspector William Silva, because we had an issue of a drug house on my block. My block got together. We actually had a meeting with the inspector over the summer, and within a week, he had put together a little task force that went in, and we had a house that we had on and off problems for 6 years with prostitution, with drugs. We had needles in the street. We had a gun that was recovered in front of the house that we were scared to let our kids walk down the block. They've taken care of that. And I wanted to thank him for, taking care of that problem that we had asked him to take care of. The task force went in there, the house actually caught on fire because even though the house was boarded up, someone supposedly a cigarette burnt down the house. But like I said, I appreciate everything that the police officers do. And I'm glad when I call 911 that the police are going to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 37 has also been a speaker on our previous public listening sessions, and we welcome her this evening. Speaker 37.
Yes. Hi, Vanessa, and hi, Task Force. My name is Emily. I am a community member and also a member with Long Island United. I am a little triggered right now, so I will also name that I am a white woman who has grown up on Long Island and also personally had wonderful interactions with police officers. In fact, I've had very few interactions with police officers. That probably was related to the fact also that I am white, but I am able to hold, and I would encourage the task force members who I'm speaking to on this call to be able to hold that just because I'm having a particular experience does not mean that represents everybody's experience. And can we please hold that people are courageously coming forth week after week after week to talk about instances of harassment, of brutality. We have heard stories of people who have died, and those happen. And just because it's not happening to me doesn't mean it's not real. So we need to look at systemic changes to make sure safety happens all around. And safety is a complex thing. And when we're talking about safety, we're talking about a whole array of mechanisms. So we're talking about policing, but we're also talking about alternatives to policing, because we have a whole array of things we can put into place in the scope of what we mean when we consider public safety. I am a little fearful, to be honest. There was a speaker earlier, Shaniqua Miss Levin talked about the legislators meeting she was at today, and I know there are some legislators on the call right now. I am a little nervous that we're engaging in a smoke and mirrors process, and that I'm spending all of this energy and time week after week doing research on really great models that can be more helpful for mental health and homelessness, and really address public safety in a way that is safe for everybody. And I am fearful that we don't actually have any power to enact real change. So right now, as a community member, my power is through the community stakeholders who are represented on this task force. I've read the governor's order. I just reread it today. I've read the guidance. I've been looking on the website. I'm not clear on what power community stakeholders have on this task force. So I know you can't answer questions, but I'd love to follow up and understand who's actually going to write this plan. Is it only the police department who writes the plan? And what happens then? What do the community stakeholders, do you get to approve it? What if you don't like what's in it? Do you get to help craft what's in it? Because you are who's representing us and the public in bringing these solutions. So I would like a little more understanding of how that's happening. And I appreciate the comment earlier by Risco about really looking into cahoots and taking these suggestions seriously. And you're always writing down what we're saying. So I want to trust these reforms are going to happen, but I'm scared, not for me. I'm scared for the people who continue to experience harassment and brutality, because it has to end. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Speaker 37, feel free to email and we can answer those questions that you have. Okay. Speaker 38.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lynette Murphy. I have kind of a unique perspective. For the last 13 years, I've been a social worker at Bellport High School, working with kids in a very diverse background. And 13 years before that, I was a probation officer and had occasion to work in a project where I was partnered with 3 different police officers over 5 years in Bellport High School. But I'm about solutions, and I know there's a lot of emotion, and I want to dispel that with what I'm going to say, and hopefully talk about some solutions. So what I support is school resource officers. I appreciate the young lady that spoke earlier, but because I was a school resource officer and I know how effective school resource officers can be in helping to quell some of that fear, and to build bridges instead of divides. I strongly support school resource officers. Officer Rotolo, who's our school resource officer, because I also am the project coordinator for a coalition in the South Country area that deals with drug abuse prevention. And Officer Rotolo has been very instrumental in helping us to achieve some of our goals there. The other thing that I think is very important with police and the 5th Precinct in general is community-oriented police. I think I call it the new normal. You know, since our population in Suffolk has gotten so large, we are a break glass in case of emergency police department now, where back in the 70s and the 80s, police officers were much more community oriented. In some cases, they walked a beat. They knew the people in their community. They took the time to investigate things that now special units have control over. I think that's a shame. I think that getting back to that would be really effective. And I think it would reduce racial division and mistrust. I think it would help youth to see officers more as human beings, not just as police officers behind a shield. I think definitely there's more diversity training needed. I think the police is a microcosm of the larger society. And yes, of course, there's going to be officers that don't do the right thing. But, you know, I think that having more diversity training and having it not just when officers are hired or having it through their computer in a patrol car where they just answer a few questions, true diversity training, where they're put through some of the rigors of what people of color deal with, I think is extremely important. I also think that more skill-based training for police so that they can better serve victims of domestic violence, people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues. I also think changing the culture is really important, where officers are not shunned or punished for reporting on other officers. And I know my time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you have other comments, please feel free. You can send them to public.input@suffolkcountyny.com. Thank you. Speaker number 39. Speaker 39, please unmute yourself. Speaker number 39, last name Jones Cologne. Speaker number 40, please unmute yourself. Speaker number 40, last name Botino.
Uh-oh.
Hello. Is that speaker number 40? So someone is unmuted. If we can mute ourselves, that would be helpful. Speaker number 41 has also been a speaker on previous listening sessions. We welcome you today and thank you for commenting. So speaker 41, please unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, my name is Cheryl Keschner, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of United for Justice in Policing Long Island. We urge Suffolk County to enact laws prohibiting all pretextual stops and requiring all law enforcement officers to obtain written informed consent before conducting any warrantless searches of vehicles and their occupants during a traffic stop. These two legal changes will dramatically reduce the incident of racially biased traffic stops and outcomes in our county. The Finn Institute recently examined more than 133,000 traffic stops, which were made by the Suffolk County Police Department between 2018 and 2019. This report and analysis were long overdue and had been required pursuant to the 2014 SCPD agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, which directed the SCPD to address a pattern of and practice of biased policing, particularly toward the Latino community. And pursuant to this agreement, SCPD did develop and improve departmental trainings designed to inform and educate officers about implicit bias. Nevertheless, the Finn Institute, as well as a recent Newsday investigative report, found that there have continued to be significant racial disparities in SCPD's traffic stop enforcement practices impacting both drivers and their passengers. For example, Black drivers are stopped at nearly twice the rate of white passengers, Latinos at 1.6 times the rate. Black drivers are ticketed at twice the rate of white drivers. Latino drivers are ticketed even more frequently. Black drivers are arrested at nearly 5 times the rate of white passengers. Black passengers, and Latinos at 1.7 times the rate of whites. Black passengers are forcibly removed from the vehicles. I want to repeat that. Black passengers are forcibly removed from their vehicles at more than 5 times the rate of white passengers, and Latinos at more than twice that rate, the rate of whites. Black passengers are restrained at more than 5 times the rate of white passengers, Latinos at 1.6 times the rate of whites. Black passengers are subjected to the use of force, at more than 8 times the rate of white passengers, and Latinos at 3.6 times the rate of whites. Black passengers are subjected to canine deployments at 11 times the rate of white passengers, and Latinos at 3 times the rate of whites. Black passengers are frisked at nearly 9 times the rate of white passengers, and Latinos at more than 3 times the rate of whites. Black passengers who are frisked are found to possess no weapons and to be released with a verbal warning at nearly 9 times the rate of similarly situated whites. And for Latinos, the rate is 4 times that of similarly situated whites. And Black passengers are searched at nearly 6 times the rate of white passengers, Latinos at more than twice that rate. I know I'm running out of time, so let me just say in conclusion, sorry, got to find my notes 1 second. It's not a question of being treated by the police the way one deserves to be treated. A person can change the color of their skin, their accent, or their immigration status. This is a time when Blacks, Latinos, and other marginalized communities are finding it increasingly difficult to trust the police, and providing trainings is not enough when clearly there still exists a culture of racism within the department. Racial profiling must not be tolerated, and there needs to be greater accountability, increased reporting of data, increased use of body cams, and an end to pretextual stops.
Thank you, Speaker 41. If there's anything else, please feel free to email to public.input@suffolkcountyn.gov.
Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 42, please unmute yourself.
Let me grab my notes. To the task force, good evening. My name is Daniel, and I'm a member of the coalition Long Island United to Transform Policing and Community Safety, as well as some others in the chat tonight. I'm speaking tonight on structural changes which Suffolk County can address, where Suffolk County can address the biases, discrimination, and inequitable outcomes in traffic enforcement. We have very clear data. Black drivers are 4 times more likely to be pulled over than white drivers, and Hispanic drivers at 2 times that rate of whites. Black drivers are 3 times more often searched than white drivers, and Hispanics are 1.7 times more often searched. Yet police found contraband less frequently when searching Black and Hispanic drivers than they do while searching white drivers. The separate but equal myth crumbles, revealing a separate and unequal traffic system, one for Black and Hispanic folks and one for white people, such as myself. Implicit bias training is not the answer. The PBA endorsed Trump as president, who got rid of implicit bias training federally. Training is not the answer, structural change is the answer. Suffolk County needs an unarmed civilian force, unconnected to Suffolk PD, to enforce basic traffic laws, forbidding for police to enforce these traffic laws, inclusive of pretextual stops. Suffolk County needs to invest in unmanned traffic options that limit the bias occurring within traffic stops and limit traffic violations. This entails automatic cameras placed in strategic locations after a racial equity analysis is conducted. It also entails investing in smarter road design, such as speed bumps, so as to mitigate violation in the first place. Suffolk County needs to develop equitable models for managing and using traffic revenue. This includes investments into under-resourced Black and Hispanic communities, repairing the harm which has been conducted by this discriminatory policing, establishing innovative mechanisms for ticket repayment, such as installment plans and community-friendly options to tickets, such as vouchers for broken taillights, has been spoken of before, instituting an equitable system of ticketing, such as instituting day fines based on a sliding scale income. Finally, I ask that the county start being totally transparent about your traffic data. We need monthly data reports and open sourced data sets around traffic stops, outcomes, and the demographics of those involved. I hope these comments collected tonight lead to lasting change by the task force as expressed by Emily.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker 42. Speaker 43, please unmute yourself. Speaker 43, last name Odekon. Speaker 43, last name Odekon. Speaker 44, Speaker 44.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Thomas Schultz. I'm a father of 3 girls under 12. I live in Bellport Village. I am teaching my daughters to be respectful of all views, but also to speak out and speak out loudly when needed, and to always question authority. I come before you today to talk about my experience this past summer in Bellport Village with regard to the Black Lives Matter march that took place in early June. I was not an organizer of that event, but I took on the responsibility of trying to do my best to make sure that the event could be as peaceful as possible. So I and others made it a point to try to ensure that there were, in situations where we knew there were heated and difficult situations on the ground on that morning, we tried to quell the emotions and tried to keep the powder keg from exploding. I'd reached out to the 5th Precinct earlier that day or the day before and spoke to Inspector Silver just to make sure he was aware of what was happening. And of course, he was well aware of what was happening. And as you know, most of these protests don't have permits to march, and nor did we that day. The protest went off very well. It was very peaceful. And it was one of the best experiences I had with my family in that march. It was a very diverse crowd, and I look forward to marching again. It went very well in part because of the observations that I would like to share with you. And my role was also to record that event and to post it on social media. The 5th Precinct responded, and there were people in the crowd that were very confrontational and wanted to confront the police. But I must say, the actions of the police that afternoon did not allow for that confrontation to take place. In fact, it became very evident that the police that day made it very clear to us that we had the right of way and that they were protecting us and protecting our right to protest and march. And they stopped traffic at intersections so we could pass safely by. And I saw Inspector Silver on the ground, making sure his officers were also capturing that spirit. And as we passed the officers at their posts, we would often say hello and smile, and they would say hello and smile back. So I just want to say specifically to that experience, I was grateful that there was a police presence that day, and I was grateful that the attitude that existed within the police force that day was very positive, reaffirming, and allowed us to protest peacefully as opposed to pushing back and trying to take the ground back, as we've seen nationally on the weeks prior to that event. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing. Speaker 45. Speaker 45.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hello. So my name is Hannah. My pronouns are they and she, and I'm an organizer with Suffolk County DSA. First, really quickly, I know that it was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, but I just want to point out that County Executive Steve Bellone and District Attorney Tim Sini are still absent from these meetings. Despite many requests from community members to attend, they are still not here to hold themselves accountable. And all we have asked them to do is their job, which is to listen to their constituents. So I really frankly think it's insulting that they're not here. But moving on, tonight I want to question the idea that this system of justice that we have in our country always will have to involve prisons and police. So I want to start by saying that what I'm about to talk about is informed greatly by the writings of Black feminists. So I want to give credit where credit is due, namely to Angela Davis, who wrote, among other works, Are Prisons Obsolete? And I encourage you all to read this if you haven't, especially those of you who are members of the task force. So one of the central points in this text, from my understanding, is that the prison system that exists today began as a reform to the previous method of punishments for crimes, capital and corporal punishment. So before this reform, confinement was a precursor to punishment rather than the punishment itself. And these reforms aim to create a rehabilitative place for people to reflect and change, which was informed by religious thought and, frankly, some problematic ideas of what order should look like. But I don't want to waste time explaining how that is so far from what we have today, because I think that that's obvious. That's why we're all here, right? But I do want to talk about the increasing alarm in the number of prisons and prisoners over the past 40 years. So we've had a rise in prisons and people who are locked up without a significant change in the percentage of crime. So I want you to ask yourself why this is. Why is the government using your tax money for this when it doesn't lower crime rates or make you safer? And I do want you to think about that, but I do have one idea, so I'll present that. The prison system is a huge moneymaker for the corporations in this country who hold substantial political power. Prison labor is cheap because prisoners are not guaranteed the minimum wage, and in some states, they are actually paid nothing for their work. So I encourage you to think about who this benefits, because I suspect it's not you. And I want us to use this moment of global outcry against policing to make real change. Reforms can only go so far when the system is so rotten at its core. So use your imagination to envision a better way. It doesn't have to be this way just because it's been this way for a few centuries. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker 45. Speaker 46, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Samantha Lawson. I go by Sam Law. I'm the founder of Young Hip Professionals, Inc. I'm also a member of the Long Island United Police Transformation, as well as the stake. Our organization, Young Hip Professionals, is one of the stakeholder groups, a part of this task force. I just wanted to talk about bias really quickly. It was very apparent throughout much of this call that there is systemic bias, not only in the police force, but by the civilians on Long Island. And it is something we need to address. We need to address it when it comes down to people of color, people that look like me, people that are otherly abled, and people part of the LGBTQ plus community. I am extremely, extremely disturbed by some of the comments that were made, especially in regards to the quality of Black people that are on Long Island and what they do or is perceived that they don't do. As a Afro-Latina that belongs to this community, that fights daily in this community, that works hard in this community to unite our people, I am greatly disheartened by those comments. And I come from a long line of people like that. And I aspire to continue to be like many of the people, especially our legislators of color and senators of color that are on this call. So that greatly disturbed me, and I didn't want to not touch upon that. But I just want to go on further to say that if you have these biases and your son, your daughter that you raised is going into the academy and then coming out with a badge, they are going to hold those biases and hold them even more tightly to themselves as they work in the field every day with people that look like me and many on this call. And it's something that needs to be addressed. And it is absolutely right. It cannot be a phone call. It cannot be a little thing you do on your computer or a quick little survey. It needs to be a class within the academy and constant nonstop training through until that officer or the officers on the force retire. And they need to hear from the people that they are serving from all walks of life. So I just want to say that is something that we need to make sure that is impressed upon when it comes down to creating new legislation and the transformation of policing on Long Island, especially in Suffolk County. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Speaker 46. Speaker 47, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Mike Simonelli, member of Suffolk PBA and a 30-year military veteran. I just wanted to say the overwhelming majority of Americans and Suffolk residents support the police. They just remain silent because they don't want to be labeled as white supremacist and racist. Names that have been thrown around more than a few times during these public input sessions. See, they realize that the police aren't the enemy, they're actually members of the community. PTA members, neighbors, sports coaches, and military reservists. See, while only 6% of the population serve in the military, nationally, 19% of police officers are former or active military members, and our Suffolk officers are no different. 431 men and women in blue are working cases and patrolling the streets every day here in Suffolk. And they're the same military members that were so highly regarded just a few weeks ago on Veterans Day for the sacrifices made in service to this great nation. It's kind of odd that social justice activists concerned about the safety of minorities want to dramatically change policing in Suffolk, because people of all races are safer here than many other places across the country. If you look at the FBI uniform crime reports, in 2018, there were 5 murders and 369 violent crimes for every 100,000 Americans. In Suffolk, with a population of nearly 1.5 million, we're well below that national average, with 1.4 murders and 103.1 violent crimes. In fact, in comparison to the 21 murders and 1,510 violent crimes in Suffolk, nearby Bronx, with a similar population size, had 54 murders and over 12,000 violent crimes. And you go to Washington, D.C., with less than half of our population, they had 160 murders and 6,600 violent crimes. And then in St. Louis, Missouri, less than a quarter of our population, they had 187 murders and 5,500 violent crimes. Now, the victims in those murders and violent crimes are overwhelmingly people of color. You see, people of all races are much safer here in Suffolk, thanks to the extraordinary professionalism and restraint of the Suffolk PD. See, in 2019, Suffolk's 2,400 officers responded to 505,000 911 calls, conducted about 125,000 traffic stops, and made about 24,000 arrests, during which they only used force 510 times and only lethal force twice. First was a white male, second was a black male, and both men threatened the officers with the firearm. So out of Suffolk, 654,000 plus contacts with the public, in 99.9% of the time, no force was used at all. While during an arrest, physical force was only used 2.12% of the time, lethal force 0.008%. So people, it shows everybody's safe here in Suffolk. So if anybody's concerned about the welfare of minorities here, they should be demanding more police instead of trying to reimagine and reinvent or defund the police, and thanking the officers for making sure that all lives matter all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker 47. Speaker 48.
Hello. My name is Florence Rothman, and I'm a member of the Coalition of Long Island United to Transform Policing and Community Safety. I'm speaking tonight as an engaged community member who recommends an alternative response to 911 mental health calls. Our group is studying systems all around the country, so we can give you the best recommendations. In these programs, police do not respond to mental health calls. They employ some combination of alternative responders, social workers, EMTs, or community peer people. So there's 4 brief comments I'd like to make. That helping people who are mentally ill and live in our community is the right thing to do. And this is an opportunity to end the criminalization of mental health. People with mental illness are 9 times more likely to be incarcerated than to end up in a mental health facility. And 40% of all the people with serious mental illness will end up in the criminal justice system at some time in their lives. So by affecting this one change, we can really help a lot of people. We can save a lot of money because our research shows, and we'll be presenting it all to you, that police response is much more expensive than a non-police response. Thirdly, this is a social justice issue that is being successfully addressed in many communities around our country. East, west, north, and south. Cahoots has been around for more than 30 years, but as we're doing our research, more and more communities are incorporating some form of this. And the last thing, and this is very important, is that it will take an ongoing community involvement to make this kind of change successful. a civil oversight board is an essential part of starting one of these programs. So I think when we present it and when you look at it, it would be helpful to keep in mind that we're involved now and the public has to be involved in an ongoing basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Speaker 48. Speaker 49. Speaker 49, last name Muller. Speaker 50.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is John Stimmel. I'm the superintendent of Sayville Schools, and I thank you for this opportunity to address this public session of the Suffolk County Police Reform and Reinvention Task Force. While I understand that this forum seeks to identify areas in need of improvement in our police department, and that there are many different points of view, tonight I'd like to highlight what I observe as strengths of our police department in general and the 5th Precinct in particular. I have had the honor of working closely with Inspector Silva and his leadership team over the past 4 years. We have worked together on several notable projects, including school safety, anti-discrimination, and the honoring of an officer from Sayville who died in the line of duty. While COVID has pushed school safety to the back pages of the news, up until the COVID outbreak, it had been an area of very serious concern for our community, for all of our communities in Islip Town. Inspector Silver and his officers scheduled regular meetings with school officials throughout the 5th Precinct. We developed plans to help ensure the safety of every student, staff member, and visitor in our schools. I found the leadership of the 5th Precinct always willing to listen, engage in productive dialogue, and make adjustments as necessary. I have observed Inspector Silva and other law enforcement officers during anti-bias workshops in our community. I have observed them demonstrate deep compassion to the experiences of the individuals in the communities they serve. And in particular, I want to recognize the important work performed by Detective Sergeant Murphy, who works to protect some of the most vulnerable members of our community. Lastly, I have been proud to stand with the officers of the Suffolk County Police Department as we honored a fallen hero and Sayville native son, Sergeant Timothy Henk. Sergeant Henk embodies our police department's willingness to sacrifice for the community they serve. So to reiterate, I have found Inspector Silva and his fellow officers always willing to listen and to work with our school district to improve upon our Suffolk County Police Department and district relations. And I ask, how can we leverage these remarkable strengths of our police department, professional service, compassion, and sacrifice, to develop better plans to better serve all of Suffolk County citizens? Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Speaker 50. Speaker 51.
Hello, my name is Ben Harper. I'm a community-based initiative for the Bellport community, and I work for the Economic Opportunity Council of Suffolk. And just wanted to say that Bellport is a difficult community, but with the assistance of Bill Silver and the 5th Precinct, they are willing to sit down and listen to the community problems. As late as in November 19th, we had a big meeting at the Bellport Alliance, where we had some of the community leaders come together and talk about some of their needs that they wanted in that community. But you know, I just want people and everyone to understand that this is not going to be solved tomorrow. And as long as we're sitting at a table and talking about it, I think things can be suppressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker 52. So with Speaker 52, I believe that Speaker 52, Christian, please confirm if I'm correct. Speaker 52 may be Spanish speaking. So we'll have interpretation as speaker 52 on the virtual meeting.
Yes, we're just confirming that speaker 52 is still on. You can just give us a moment.
Thank you. As we indicated, if those who do not speak, if English is not your primary language and you feel more comfortable in speaking in your native language, particularly Spanish, you have the opportunity to provide public comment in Spanish. So we're just checking to see if speaker 52 is on to provide comment. Thank you.
Doesn't appear that speaker 52 is on.
Then we will go to speaker 53. If you can check to see if speaker 53 is on. I think speaker 53 may be Spanish speaking as well.
Yes, speaker 53 is on.
Pues Fernández habla español.
Sí, dale un momento. Vamos a cambiar. Hello, interpreter, can you speak to confirm that we can hear you? Elizabeth? Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Ya le escucho. ¿Puedo hablar ya?
Espera un momento, por favor, solo vamos a...
Ok.
Gracias. Delfina, are you there? Delfina?
Can someone text them?
Right. And if possible, if speaker 53 is ready to speak, perhaps we can have them speak in Christian if you could summarize, and we can try to get the interpreter.
I can also, Vanessa, I can also help.
Very good. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. So if we let speaker 53 speak.
Ok, señor, ya puedes comenzar si estás listo.
Ok, gracias. Mi nombre es Giovanni Fernández. Vivo por 30 años en la ciudad de Pacho. Represento a la comunidad pobre y a la comunidad inmigrante. Quiero decir que, por experiencia personal, antes nosotros teníamos miedo a la policía, teníamos terror a la policía, pero últimamente, gracias al inspector Silva, hemos tenido encuentros con la policía, hemos tenido reuniones con la policía, hay más policía hispanas junto a nosotros, lo cual ha dado confianza, lo cual ha dado que la comunidad se sienta más segura. Por eso, como comunidad, estamos muy agradecidos al inspector Silva, a Liz y a todas las personas que se han preocupado por nuestra comunidad, especialmente a las personas que hablan español. Hoy es más fácil llegar gracias a las reuniones, gracias a los eventos. Como ustedes saben, en el resto del país hay mucha violencia, hay mucho odio racial, la policía trata mal especialmente a morenos e hispanos, pero acá en el precinto 5 la cosa es diferente y estamos muy agradecidos. Ese es nada más que quiero presentar.
Giovanni, lo quería interrumpir solamente porque quiero traducirlo como usted lo está diciendo. So he wanted us to know that his name is Giovanni Fernandez. He's been a resident in the area for 30 years, and that he is here to represent not only the immigrant community, but the poor people that live in the area. And that he is very, very appreciative of the 5th precinct and of the head person there that we've heard so much about today, and I guess Inspector Silver. And that, you know, they come from countries that have been, where they've been treated very poorly by the police, and there is a lot of violence, and that he's happy to say that they feel very comfortable in the area and in the community as a consequence of the 5th precinct and the work that has been done collaboratively with the community, the immigrant and poor community. And they are even assisted in terms of participating in activities and programming that takes place as a consequence of the work that the 5th precinct has put in in developing that relationship with the community. Puede seguir, Giovanni.
También tenemos mucha policía de habla hispana, la cual favorece la comunicación entre nuestra comunidad y la policía.
He said that there's a lot of Spanish speakers in the precinct, and so there is a great translation that takes place and communication that takes place with the community as a consequence that the presence of being bilingual exists in the 5th precinct. And that he also wanted to note that he is very aware of the differences in the precincts and how other people feel in other communities, but they feel relatively safe in being supported by the 5th precinct. Siga.
Muchas gracias. Tiempo se acabó. Gracias.
A sus órdenes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Linda. This is our task force members. They speak to the culture and who they are, willing to pitch in and do what is needed to ensure that people's voices are allowed to be heard and that they're part of the process. So Linda, once again, I thank you.
Thank you.
Christian, speaker 54. Oh no, speaker 54. Are you, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Hope. My pronouns are she, her. My name's Hope Taglich. I'm a member of the autistic community, and I signed on as a speaker today, particularly to talk about mental health calls and welfare checks in regards to neurodivergent individuals. It frightens me as an autistic person that a welfare check could be answered by 911, and in most areas of the country they are. I think that mental health resources should be redirected. So instead of police officers answering welfare checks, social workers should, or mental health professionals should. I think the idea of police officers responding to welfare checks is inherently flawed, and almost every mentally ill or neurodivergent person who has been killed by police, from Eleanor Bumpurs to Walter Wallace Jr., was killed during a welfare check. So it's very important that on Long Island in particular, this particular change is enacted, because my safety and the safety of other neurodivergent and mentally ill people are at risk. And in addition, we have to stand in solidarity with members of the autistic community who suffer from who deal with intersectional issues as well. And this includes Black and Latino autistic people who are at increased risks of police violence, even compared to autistic, like they are at increased risks of police violence even compared to neurotypical Black and brown people.
Speaker 54, are you finished? Are you complete? It sounds like we might have lost you. Speaker 54, we might have lost you. Speaker 55. Speaker 55, Christian, maybe. Speaker 55?
I believe I have 55.
Okay, very good.
Yes, thank you, especially for this invitation tonight. And thanks to everyone to be here for almost 3 hours that I've been in this call. My name is Daniel Valverde. I have been living in Pacho for over 20 years. I'm also a business owner. And being a resident of the 5th precinct, it's just, I seen over the years the change, because I think we need to be more involved with the community and also with the police. But in my own opinion, I have not one bad experience with the police. Let's say, I think we have to be a good residents. Also, the police can be good with us. And I am an immigrant too. I am from Ecuador. Like I said, I came pretty much like straight from Ecuador to Pacho. And I experienced like being over these years in Pacho. And I seen this Pacho always being a great community and it's getting better. And it's just not because I would say general change, is because we are a community and we make this a better community. And the police is doing their work. And I see they put in a lot of now time, especially trying to set up almost 12 months meetings in Spanish for the Spanish community. And sometimes I think, as the other person said before used to be people scared of the police. Now we see the police putting a lot of time setting up meetings. And I know it's a lot of work, but they're trying to do their best. And I think now we have to do that on us, because if we don't put it, I would say our time, the police can put a lot of things. They can do a lot for us, but if we don't do it, there's nothing to be changed. And I believe, in order to close this session, is we have to be a good residents so we can have a good police representing our community. Thank you everyone for this information. I learned a lot tonight about what's going on like in every town, and also a lot of stuff that's going on in the community. And I see, like I said, we just have to let the police do their work, and just it's gonna be better communities, better neighborhoods, and also for our children, a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker 55. Speaker 56. Speaker 56.
David, si quieres hablar en este momento.
Last name Collier.
Alejandro.
Collier.
I think he's speaking Spanish. I hear somebody.
That's me. That's Christian.
That was Christian.
Christian's talking to him in Spanish.
Speaker 56, Kolar.
Don't think 56 is on.
Okay, Speaker 57. Oh, 57 spoke, sorry. Speaker 58. Or Speaker 57.
Doesn't appear that they are on.
Okay, then Speaker 59. Last name Trotta, Speaker 59.
Yes, it's Rob Trotta, county legislator and former cop. I just want to applaud.
I'm
Can you
sorry.
hear me?
Hold on one second. Someone's phone is unmuted. If you can mute your phone so that everybody has the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Legislator Trotta.
Yes, I just want to compliment Officer Simoletti for doing a great job summarizing how safe Suffolk County is, and it is. And I wasn't going to speak, but in listening to the people concerned about traffic stops, I want to sort of explain that. When you do sectors, you do it by number for calls for service. So in minority areas, for whatever reason, tighter living conditions, there's more sector cars, so there's more calls, and there's more cars there, as opposed to an area where there's bigger houses or more spread out. So you're only going to get more people pulled over in those areas. Then you couple that with the reason the cops are there, because there's more calls, probably more crime. You have task forces and other cops in there trying to prevent that. And all these things are designed to make that community safer. So think about that. These guys are going there to make your community safer. Do they sometimes make mistakes? Do they sometimes maybe say something that someone will take wrong? And if you got pulled over once or twice, does that, make you feel bad about the cops? But when you pull yourself out of it and look at it, they're there to make your community safer. That's one explanation. I think you should take that into consideration. And remember, those guys were there to help you, and they're there to help your community. So I applaud Officer Simonelli. He really summed it up nicely. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker number 60.
Hi, everybody. My name is.
Hello.
My
Hola,
pronouns.
buenas noches.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Mi nombre es Emma Paz.
So Speaker 60, please stand down for a second.
I think speaker 59 is on.
Okay.
Hola, muy buenas noches. Mi nombre es Emma Pazmino. Soy de la comunidad. Estoy aquí para dar las gracias en primer lugar al inspector Silva por todo el trabajo excelente que ha hecho en el precinto 5 y también a todos los que conforman el precinto 5. Todos en conjunto han cambiado el precinto, han cambiado la forma de tratarnos a la comunidad y de nosotros tener confianza. Podemos ver claramente la diferencia que hay cuando uno va al precinto 5 y si vamos al precinto 3. Tengo bastante conocimiento del precinto 3, por eso estoy diciendo. Es mucha la diferencia que hay. Entonces, a uno sería excelente tener como jefe a una persona como el inspector Silva. Porque él, con tanta experiencia que tiene y con buen inspector que ha sido y que está siendo, él sería excelente jefe para los inspectores, para que él diga cómo unir a la comunidad. A él no le ha importado estar donde sea en las reuniones, en casas, en basements, en donde sea, él se ha reunido. Queremos un jefe de esa calidad, un jefe que una a la comunidad, que no tengamos miedo de la policía.
Doña Emma, la voy a interrumpir solamente porque quiero dar la cuita que usted dijo ahora mismo y entonces seguimos.
Okay.
Her name is Emma Pasmini. She wanted to once again give praise to Inspector Silva in the 5th precinct for the great work that he's done, and particularly for the comfort level that he has created among the community and the difference that he has made as a consequence of that. More importantly, she is noting that she can say that because she has been to the 3rd precinct and the treatment in the 3rd precinct by no stretch of the imagination compares to the way she's treated when she goes to the 5th precinct. She has gone to the extent of suggesting that Inspector Silva be used as a trainee of other inspectors as a consequence that the kind of work that he does as a boss, because it comes from the top down, has made even the officers in the precinct even better at doing their jobs and in communicating. That he has been someone who shows up at all meetings that he gets invited to, whether it's in a house, in a basement, in a crawl space, he's there to support the community, and she wants you to know that. Siga, Doña Emma.
Por esa razón, quisiéramos pedir a las personas que escogen o que nombran, no sé quiénes sean específicamente, que tengan en cuenta en poner como jefes a unas personas con experiencia, con humanidad, con todas esas cosas para que ellos sean nuestros jefes y poder tener más amplitud con la policía. Si vemos aquí el Pacho bajó bastante el crimen. Antes era mucho el crimen. Yo vivo aquí casi 30 años y totalmente, ahora la relación con la policía es excelente. ¿Por qué? Porque la cabeza principal, que es el inspector, está ahí para unirnos.
Doña Emma, una pregunta, doña Emma, una pregunta. Usted ha habido, ya que usted dice que hacen 30 años, ¿usted puede decir que ha sido un cambio desde el tiempo de Marcelo Lucero?
Sí, muchísimo el cambio después de Marcelo Lucero. Si vemos antes de Marcelo Lucero, pues, pueden decir el cambio que ha habido. Totalmente, bastantísimo el cambio. Y
Voy a,
estos últimos años ha sido más todavía, porque se ha metido el inspector Silva más de fondo a tratar de unirnos. Pero quiero, como
voy a
chica,
decir, voy a dar su cuita. She has now proceeded to say that she would really like for individuals in the police department who make decisions on inspectors for these precincts to actually consider very much the mannerisms and the character that the inspector brings to the table, because it's with that level of experience and the kind of humanity that he brings to the job that he then sets the tone for the precinct and for the people that are working alongside. I did interject and ask the question because everyone that has spoken has done this. They've said they've been here 20, 30 years, and I have sat in the Human Rights Commission now for 20, so I lived the Marcelo Lucero times, which were very difficult in Patchogue. And she said that there's been a dramatic change in the Patchogue area since that incident in 2008. And so she credits that to some very specific tactics that took place in trying to sort of bring that community together. And certainly that Inspector Silva has really done a phenomenal job in becoming more integrated with the community. Doña Emma, eso era todo.
por esa razón quisiéramos como chief al inspector Silva. Gracias, muchas gracias al inspector Silva, gracias a todo el precinto quinto, gracias a todos los que en la noche de hoy han estado informándonos todo, muchísimas gracias.
A sus órdenes. She said that she definitely recommends him to be a chief because he's been such a phenomenal inspector, and that again, you know, his level of humanity and interest in the community has been significant in the difference that it's made in terms of the interaction with the immigrant community.
Thank you, Speaker, and also thank you once again, Linda, for the interpretation services that you're providing. Much appreciated. Speaker number 60. Sorry, thank you for holding back and allowing the other speaker to speak. So Speaker 60.
Yeah, anytime. I would hate to speak over a member of the immigrant community. I appreciate you guys. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the co-chair of Suffolk County Democratic Socialists of America. Before I get going, though, I wanted to point out a tech issue. I think when I was registering, there wasn't an option to talk about the political donations from cop unions to politicians. I know that that's a glaring, error, I'm sure. I just wanted to be sure that we're talking about that in the task force as well.
Sorry, so clarifying statement. You have the opportunity to put in others. So if there's a topic that you'd like to speak about that's not necessarily a topic that's listed, you have the opportunity to add that as well.
Perfect. Let's talk about the $830,000 that Steve Ballone's re-election campaign got from the Suffolk PBA, and the $329,000 that District Attorney Tim Sini got from the PBA. And let's remember also that District Attorney Sini was the former.
Wait, can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
The computer muted me. I didn't touch anything.
Continue.
But let's also remember that, that DA Sini got $329,000 from the Suffolk PBA. And let's remember that he used to be the police commissioner. Wink. Maybe that has a bit of an effect on their priorities, but I digress. I also want to shout out anyone who has resisted in the street and blocked traffic, because today is the anniversary of Rosa Parks not moving her seat on the bus. And let's remember that in fact stopped traffic and was a show of resistance that was positive in the history of our country. That happened December 1st, probably about 60 years ago now. But I also wanted to talk about a little bit, there is a Nazi gang in my town. I don't know if you guys are familiar with NSC 131. NSC is, they call themselves the Nationalist Social Club. And on November 1st, if you have the Telegram app, Telegram, Telegram, search NSC 131 and go up to their October 31st, November 1st Telegram call. And they have pictures of them in Ronkonkoma and Holtzville putting up Nazi stickers and holding up their Nazi flag. The S in NSC is shaped like the SS from Nazi Germany. I would just really like to know what the Suffolk County Police Department is doing about fascist terror gangs in our area.
So 60, because you were muted and you had that previous time frame, you get an additional 25 seconds, so continue on.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you, Vanessa. Your professionalism is always noted on these calls. Yeah, so this Nazi gang, NSC 131, they have all these pictures, a couple of them in Holtzville and Ronkonkoma. They unveiled their, flag at the Ronkonkoma train station and stuff like that. I don't anticipate that there's a lot of members, but I know that if there were like 4 members of, MS-13, that they would probably be arrested for being gang members. I would really like to see an initiative from the Suffolk County Police Department about white supremacist gangs in our area. I'm happy to email you the pictures from this Telegram app. It's just in my area, Holtzville, Ronkonkoma, and I'm frankly shocked at their existence. And I would like to see a little pushback from the Suffolk County Police rather than just plain old racist policing like usual. So
There's 60, thank you very much. And feel free to email those pictures to public.input@suffolkcountynY.gov. Speaker 57 is actually available and they're going to speak. They are a Spanish speaker. So Linda, I'm going to need your assistance once again. And if Christian, if you can let Speaker 57 know that they can speak at this time.
Yep, just give me 2 seconds. David, si puedes, me puedes escuchar, si quieres ya puedes hablar.
Christian, are we receiving response from Speaker 57?
He unmuted himself and we're waiting for something to happen. Just bear with me for a second.
Speaker 57. Just give us 1 minute.
David, ¿los puedes escuchar? He is saying he's unable to speak even though he is unmuted, so it might be a technical issue.
Linda? Unmute yourself. Say it again, Linda.
Now I did. Okay, maybe he was having the same trouble because I couldn't unmute myself.
Okay.
Christian, ask him now again.
¿Puedes probar otra vez, David?
We can't unmute him?
He's unmuted, so that's the...
Oh, and what's Christian, what's the last name?
It's just period.
Okay.
Period.
First name is David.
David. Period.
Don David, usted nos escucha a nosotros, puede hablar en este momento. There's no response.
Yeah, he does hear us, pero no lo deja hablar. It's not able to let him speak for some reason. But he is on.
Yeah, he says he can. He can hear us, but he can. Unfortunately, something's up with his system that it's not allowing him to communicate.
Okay, so what we can do is, because we thank everybody for their time being on the call, I think what we can do is if he can access his contact information, and we'll take the opportunity to give him a call so that we can hear what his comment is and make sure that we're sharing that with our task force members as well. Christian, is a possibility that you can communicate, or Linda, communicate that?
I think Christian can because he's a co-host. I can't see him. Christian has to do it.
Yeah, I'll message him directly.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I can call him if you want.
No problem. We have staff that will be able to do it. Normally one of our staffers is on, but she's not on today for this meeting.
That's fine, not a problem.
Quickly, we'll go through those speakers that haven't spoken. Speaker number 8. I'm sorry, not speaker number 8, speaker number 6. Speaker number 24.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go out. Sorry, I'm gonna be brief. My name is Rabbi Beryl Sasankin. I'm from Young Israel Chabad of Patchogue. I just wanted to give thanks to the precinct, especially to Bill Silva, that whenever we have any concern about the safety, we don't have to call them. Rather, the police is calling us, making sure that our congregation is safe. And I cannot describe my appreciation in the entire community. Also in the personal level, whenever there was a problem with an individual, immediately they came and took care of the problem. So I just wanted to recognize and to say thanks. And I hope this is going to give an encouragement to continue the good connection between us and the whole community. Thanks again.
Thank you. There were 2 other speakers here. If you can unmute, if you can mute your phone, that would be helpful. Speaker 32. Speaker 39. Speaker 43. Okay, so here, that concludes the speakers for this portion of this public listening session, number 5, centered around precinct number 5. You know, we thank you all for joining the call, and we know that for many of you, you were on this call for an extremely long time, making sure that your voices were heard. You had the opportunity to speak, to share your concerns, thoughts, suggestions. As we engage in this work, all of us are not going to have the same experiences as it pertains to policing. Some people have good experiences, some people have bad experiences, some people have recommendations, some people will have suggestions and things to consider and thoughts to consider. We ask everybody to be respectful of that because everybody has an opportunity for their voice to be heard. So an opportunity to come forward and allow that voice to be heard is extremely important. Just to clarify the process, we are engaged in our public listening process at this point in time. After this, our task force members are also delving into subcommittees. Our intention is to have a draft report of the recommendations in our plan by the end of January, beginning of February, an opportunity for public comment, and then submission to the legislature for approval to then submit to New York State. I indicated this at the beginning of the call. However, I wanted to ensure that you understood because there were questions in the call that asked what the process is. The other, some of the other questions are that the opportunity for people to speak. we, share these task force and listening sessions to ensure that people have the opportunity to speak. You are required to register by 3 o'clock the day of. So up until 3 o'clock the day of the listening session, you have the opportunity to speak. So please take the opportunity. You can register now for the next listening session. Take the opportunity. It's unfair to allow some to speak when other people wanted to have the opportunity to speak as well and did not register or were not on. So I ask people to register to speak, and I sent a link, and we'll put the link, if our staff can put the link of the next registration for our next listening session in the chat, so people have the opportunity now. I'm sorry. In addition, so I provided you the framework and the time frame that's associated with the task force. In addition, we also have, we're engaged in this work, and we're engaged in this work because we're committed to the work of police reform and reinvention within Suffolk County. The county executive is tasked to deputy county executives, as well as staff, as well as the police department, police commissioner, deputy police commissioner, as well as staff from the police department. We're all engaged because we're committed to this work. So just know and be encouraged by us being engaged and being committed to this work that we will see a plan that has police reform and reinvention as it pertains to Suffolk County. So once again, I thank you all for your comments, your suggestions, being respectful as best as you can to everyone. And, we're asking once again for fair, just, and equitable policing within Suffolk County. So we need to embody that spirit as well when we're being respectful, fair, and just to others. At this time, I turn it over to my co-facilitator, John Kamen, for any parting words. I turn it over to our police commissioner, Geraldine Hart.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you everybody for sharing with us today. I just want to put a couple of things up just for informational purposes. Tim had mentioned some information on some hate crimes that he has witnessed. So we do have a standalone hate crimes unit that you can contact at SCPD, hate crimes unit at suffolkcountiny.ny.gov. And again, that's a standalone unit of detectives that will be happy to take that information for you. There was also a mention about some prostitution in the 5th precinct. I just wanted to make everybody aware of our standalone human trafficking unit that was stood up pretty unique in the region in 2018. Since that time, we have had a 600% increase in indictments of human trafficking together with our partners at the DA's office. And more importantly, we have changed kind of the paradigm on how we treat these women who are engaged in prostitution, getting them the services that they need so that they can change their lives. And we have interacted and helped over 220 victims in that arena. So that's a very active unit, and we're very proud of that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to everybody's attention. Thank you, everybody, for your input and for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vanessa, yeah, let me jump in. I'm
Okay.
unable to unmute
Okay.
quick enough. So yes, so thanks everybody. Again, I thought it was a good meeting. It was a long meeting. There's a lot of voices that need to be heard, and the task force is spending a lot of time hearing those voices. Again, the whole process by which we've set this up, by which the county executive set this up, is to have the task force hear the voices and coordinate and comprise a plan to submit to the legislature. Our staff, his staff, and are dedicated in conjunction with both the district attorney and the county executive to achieve this end. And so we look forward to continuing in this process. This is the way we've put it together. We think it's working. And to the task force members, it's really fantastic to have so many people so intimately engaged and personally engaged in what's going on. There's a lot of meetings, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot more to come. So we look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you. Deputy Police Commissioner.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and being, as Vanessa said, as respectful as you could, which is quite funny. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. Hope, I don't know if you're still on the call, but thank you for your language. I always like learning better language to articulate an issue. So you were really helpful for me, and I'm going to do more research in that area. regarding Inspector Silva, the reason why you're hearing so much about him, for one real reason, is he really does work hard with community, works hard with community ahead of time. I've worked personally with him in the neighborhoods with the homeless issue, bring together coalitions to go into the woods and work with people. And so that's probably why you're hearing more about him, because he does do a lot of good community relations work. And the last thing I want to say is a lot of you talked about traffic stop data. The facts are the facts. The data is the data. And it's not enough to say that if you live in a Black or brown community, or you live in a poor community, just get used to it. So I reject that theory. I reject that theory because I know the Suffolk County Police Department, we're going to look at this issue. We're going to work on this issue, and we're going to do better at this issue. This is a national issue. The nation is looking at it. And I know we're going to get better at this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Police Commissioner. Also, just so that everyone is aware as well, after our listening sessions take place, within a day or two of the listening session, they are made available publicly. So you have the opportunity to be able to review previous public listening sessions and an opportunity to indicate whether something was not covered and you have a suggestion or recommendation that you would like to make. So once again, we thank you all for your time. We thank you for your contributions. We thank you for working with us collaboratively as we are engaged in this process of police reform and reinvention within Suffolk County. Please take the opportunity, if you have resources, research that you want to send to us, public.input@suffolkcountyny.gov. We've reached out to stakeholder organizations, and we've had the task force as well as staff have had additional meeting with stakeholders. And some stakeholders are bringing the voices of 50 to 100 people to our ears so that we can hear the recommendations and suggestions. So we ask you to continue to be a part of the process. Our next, if we can go to those last slides, please. And if we cannot, in an expedited manner, our next task force public listening session is December 9th. Please take the opportunity to join and share. We ask you to be liaisons. We ask you to be ambassadors. So please share the information as it pertains to our listening sessions so that the community's voices can be heard. You also have the opportunity to be able to attend the public community meetings from the Suffolk County Police Department. And while these are not Q&As, these listening sessions that we're engaged in, if you have particular questions or concerns and suggestions, we ask you to engage with your police department as well. So you have the opportunity to be able to attend the Suffolk County community meetings. So we thank you all once again for your time. Blessings to all of you. Have a great evening. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and make sure you send us the information that we need and that you would like to share with us. And we ask that you share the information as it pertains to our public listening sessions. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Take care.